And what was John doing at the time that people were following him and yelling at him?
Walking up the street.
Okay. And where was this Old Granite Street?
Yes.
And was he walking from the area of the Goat towards the area of Soho?
Yes.
Where approximately was he in that distance when people were following him and yelling at him?
He was probably right in front of the Goat, about to be in front of Maker's Space. I'm not sure what that place is called. And the girls were like on the wall between the two businesses, and that's where it happened.
Okay. That's where he had the interaction with
Yes,
the girls, right?
yes.
But then you said there were people following him, right?
Yes.
Where was John when people were following him?
Same spot.
Okay. And did you ever see John use a gun at that point in front of the makerspace? What did you see him do?
I saw him take out a gun and put it into the air, and I heard a click.
Okay. And did he say anything at that time?
I believe he said next person that touches me is getting shot.
Okay. And then what did he do?
Continued walking up the street.
Okay. When he continued walking, so he didn't shoot the gun at that point, right?
No.
And did anybody say anything in response to that?
The group of gentlemen that were following him went across the street to the parking lot connected to Bank of America and got sat by their cars, I presume, and yelled, "Oh, we have guns too."
Okay. What were the exact words that they yelled?
We have guns too, pussy.
Okay. And who were they yelling that to?
John?
Okay. And they were standing in the parking lot of the Bank of America, more or less, when they said
Yes.
Where was John when this was being said to him?
Same spot between the Go and Maker's space.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a portion of what is State's Exhibit 65. Just a moment, please. What I'll ask you to do, sir, is perhaps if you can get off the witness stand and I'm going to have you step over to that screen. Okay. And we're at approximately 2 minutes and 6 seconds into this video. Is that, you agree with that?
I guess.
Okay. And, sir, there are, you can see how there's a cam 3 and a cam 4, correct?
Yes.
And on cam 3, there's a person standing right here. There's two people on the sidewalk, and I'm pointing to the person on the left in the front of the screen. Who is that person?
Looks like me.
That's you, okay. And so, is it fair to say that you were almost directly in front of the shooting? I'm sorry, in front of the Soho right about the time that the shooting occurred?
Yes.
You mean, you can sit down, sir. And just a moment, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Enright.
Good morning.
I want to start off. So this happened about 10 months ago,
Yes.
and that night you spoke with a uniformed police officer,
Yes.
and that was right after this happened.
Yes.
An hour or so. And you're aware he had a body-worn camera on,
Yes.
and you're aware there's a transcript made of that.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously this was 10 months ago, but just for purposes of the record, the comment about the guns, you had said that we all have guns too. The actual statement that you told police was, they're like, it's New Hampshire, we all have guns too, pussy, right?
Yes.
Does that sound more accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And you remember it was probably better then than it is now, given that it was 10 months ago?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to clear that up. So let's go back to the moment you come out of the goat. So you said the defendant's coming out of the goat, and he takes a right to go up the sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay. You said you heard screaming. Do you remember what? Was the defendant screaming, or was it other people screaming?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's okay. Did you hear somebody screaming, "Where you at, pussy bitch," as he walked out of the bar that night?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he comes up, takes that right out of the goat, starts walking up Soho. You said between the goat and between Manchester Makerspace, we have two groups of people following him, or interacting with him, correct? We have this group of girls, and they were spitting at him?
Yes.
Okay. And you said one of them was actually taking a swing at him?
Yes.
Okay. This other group of gentlemen, you said there was 4. Have you in the past said that there was about 6 to 7 people following him at that point? You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. So a large group either way.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of stuff going on in this moment. Okay. So a large group of males are following the defendant right after he goes out of the goat, correct? And
Sorry, I didn't hear a verbal answer.
Yes.
sorry. And I talk quick. If I don't give you time to answer, talk over me and I'll
Okay.
stop. My apologies. Okay. So we have this large group of males, 6 to 7 males, following the defendant. And I didn't hear the exact word you used with defense, but fair to say that those 6 or 7 males were also taking swings at him?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you remember speaking with the prosecution team on November 14th?
Yes.
2023? Okay. Do you remember saying that the group of 6 to 7 men following the defendant were spitting at him and throwing swings at him?
Yes. I probably included the girls in that group
Okay.
because I assume they're all together.
Okay, so that whole group. But so the men were swinging at him or weren't swinging at him?
I don't recall.
Okay. Fair to say that group was harassing him?
Yes.
Okay, and that's clear from your perspective, right?
Yes.
There's no question in your mind that that group that's following him, and we're talking about before you see the gun, right? We're talking about between the goat and when you see the gun. This group is definitely harassing him.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Your man approach?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been entered for identification as States Exhibit 73. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Have you seen this before?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just describe for us, does this reasonably and accurately reflect the layout of the bars, the street, the parking lot, and those locations that night?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to make this a full exhibit.
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah, so right now it's a 2-foot for some reason.
Correct. So why don't you mark and then move it in?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, Mr. Enright, can you circle the goat, please? And just for the record, since it's audio, I'm just noting that it's a red Sharpie, okay?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on up,
I'll wait for counsel. Okay. Now, you said defendant eventually pulls out a firearm.
So
correct?
I think where you're standing, you're blocking some of the jurors so they can't see the witness, so.
Do you mind if I walk around
Yeah, no.
that way?
Yeah.
Make a better door. All right, Mr. Enright, you said that you eventually see the defendant, John Delee, pull out a firearm,
Yes.
correct? Then you said at that point, this group of 6 or 7 guys, they run straight across the street, correct?
Yes.
And they get to a car?
I don't know if they went to a car, but they didn't get into a car. I wasn't paying attention to them.
Okay, you had testified on the direct that they were over by a car?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Can you mark on that map what the area of that car was where they ran straight across? Okay. And so that's 6 or 7 guys that are by this red X. That's where they make...
What's the objection?
He said there were 6 or 7 guys by the red X. That's supposed to be testimony.
He did.
Well, Claire, why don't you ask him a question?
Mr. Enright, I'll go back. I thought I covered this. That same group of 6 or 7 guys that were harassing him, after the defendant brandishes the firearm, they ran directly across the street, correct?
Right.
Okay. To the area where the red X is.
Correct.
Okay. The area of the red X, that's where this group of people, that's where they made this statement about, it's New Hampshire, we all have guns, pussy.
Yes.
Okay. They weren't walking up the street at that point.
No.
They didn't walk down the street at that point.
No.
So when he brandishes the gun, they beam straight across the street.
Yes.
Okay. Can I see this? Your Honor, state moves this to be a full exhibit.
Okay.
All right. Maybe, the ID maybe is correct.
Your Honor, may I publish this to the jury?
Okay.
All right, let's move up to the Soho area. That was the video that we watched, the corner of that. Now, eventually, Timmy comes running up there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you see him punch the defendant shortly after that, right?
Yes.
Okay. That interaction that happens at the corner, and I'm talking in the split seconds beforehand, you thought there was going to be a fight.
Yes.
Okay. And there's back and forth, right?
Yes.
Okay. Both ways.
Yes.
Okay. No one looked like they were trying to leave.
No.
No one was screaming for help.
No.
No one was saying they were terrified.
No.
You didn't hear anyone threaten to kill anyone right then.
I wasn't close enough to hear the conversation.
Okay. The only time you heard somebody mention killing was when the defendant pulled out the gun the first time.
Yes.
Your Honor, I see there's nothing further.
When the gun, what was the exact statement that the defendant made when he pulled out the gun the first time?
I don't know the exact statement, but it was something along the lines of somebody, the next person that hits me is going to die, or is going to get shot.
Okay. He didn't say he was going to kill someone. He said next person that touches me is going to get shot.
I believe so, yes.
And in fact, when you were asking questions about Timothy walking up the street, right?
You're right.
And Timothy was having words with John, right?
Yes.
And you had a conversation with Timothy as he was walking up the street, right?
Briefly.
And you told him something, right?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
I said, that guy has a gun. That guy has a gun. I would not go near that.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yes. So we just clarified. So there was a statement by the defendant, the next person that touches me, hits me, something to that effect,
Correct.
is going to die.
Yes.
Fair to say the next person that you saw touch the defendant after this back and forth argument got killed?
Yes.
No further questions.
Okay, you can step down. All right, and this witness is excused? All right, you're free to go. Thank you. Stay ready to call its next witness. While you're seated, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There's water and there's a cup up there if you
Thank
need
you.
it.
For that real quick.
There's also a microphone in front of you, so just be careful.
Gotcha.
And I'm just going to stay back here, so I'll let you know if I can't hear you for some reason.
Sounds
okay?
good.
So could you state your name and spell your first and last name for the record, please?
My name is Brian Delaney, BrianDelaney.
And where are you currently employed, Mr. Delaney?
They go in Manchester.
What's your job there?
Bouncer and bartender.
How long have you worked for the GOAT?
About 2-3 years now.
And when did they open?
The Go in Manchester opened 2 years ago.
So you've been there the whole time, pretty much?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you always been a bartender?
No, I used to just bounce when I first started.
And what are your responsibilities when you're a bouncer for the GOAT?
Mostly just keeping the peace, checking IDs, making sure no fights break out.
And if fights did break out, what would your responsibility be in dealing with that?
It would be to split the two up, figure out what went down, and then kick one or the other out, kick them both out if they were both at fault.
And I assume you're not working by yourself when you're doing this?
No, we had a pretty big crew. We have a pretty big crew, like 5-6 guys maybe.
Okay. Would you normally call the police, Manchester police, if a fight occurred like that?
No, we wouldn't.
So you normally break it up and kick everybody
Yeah, we
out?
just do it on our own.
So I'd like to turn your attention now to January 27th of 2023. Were you working at the GOAT that night?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you working as a bouncer or a bartender?
Bouncer.
Do you remember when your shift started?
Started around 7 o'clock,
And what time would it have ended?
probably around 1:32.
And is that around last call, or when does the bar?
Last call was at 12:45, and we cleared everyone out at 1:15.
So this was a Friday night in January. How busy was the GOAT that night?
I'd say fairly busy. Not like the busiest night, but we had probably 200 to 300 people in there.
And do you remember if you had a police detail there that night?
We did.
Was that something that was there every night?
Every Friday, Saturday night, yes.
And what was your understanding of that person's responsibility?
Well, we started having those after it.
Hold on. Objection.
His understanding was it the police officer's responsibility?
Well,
I can
yeah, you want to just
rephrase
rephrase
it
it?
a little bit. Were the police there essentially to back you up if there's a concern?
Yes.
Okay. Towards the end of your shift that night, did you witness an altercation at the bar?
Yes.
And do you remember where you were stationed at that time?
I do.
Okay. Where was that?
probably 15 feet away, 10 feet away from the altercation.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been entered as State's Exhibit 33. Have you seen this diagram before?
Yes.
Okay. And is this an overview, basically, of the goat?
Yeah,
layout?
it's like an aerial view.
Can you show us, if you don't mind coming down to where the larger TV is, can you show us where you were on this layout?
It was right here.
So that, where's the main bar area again, just to orient people?
This is the main bar.
Okay. And you're down in that kind of top
Yep.
of the diagram? Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Can you describe for me what you saw when you, or heard when you were?
I saw John and Timmy exchanging words.
So I'm going to stop you just for a second. When you say John, who are you referring to? And we have a record that's actually recording you, so I just need you to actually use your words to describe what you're saying, so that we
Big
can.
man wearing the black suit.
Okay. Is he standing up right now?
Yes.
May the record just reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will.
And when you say Timmy, can you describe who that is?
Little blonde man.
So where was Timmy when in this? In your verses?
They were at the bar, John and Timmy, standing next to each other.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you just to talk up just a little bit.
Yep, sorry.
No, it's okay. Was there anybody else there that you knew, or just the two of them?
Sarah, girl,
And how do you know Sarah?
just from working at the Goat. She used to come in a lot.
Did you know who she was with?
She was with Timmy.
So can you describe what you're seeing for an interaction between?
They were exchanging words, and it seemed to get like not too friendly. Like they were like pretty much kind of curse, talking shit. That's pretty much what they were doing.
Could you hear exactly what was being said, or just kind of the nature of it?
Just kind of demeanor. Like as a bouncer, I see this stuff all the time. When the stuff starts to get like a little more intense, I knew like something wasn't so chill.
Okay. So as a bouncer, when you notice this, do you start paying more attention to it?
Yeah, definitely.
And what did you see as you were kind of watching this interaction?
I saw that they were getting kind of, not aggressive, but like it was starting to get a little too much. That like something might break out, like a fight. So I went over there and broke it up.
I'm going to show you a still from State's Exhibit 50. Meaning it's just a photo from there. Have you seen this photo before?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, do you see yourself in the photo?
I do.
Okay, where are you in this?
I'm right at the bottom.
And actually, if you don't mind walking back over to the big TV again, can you just point out where you are?
I'm right here.
Okay. And do you see where the defendant and Timmy are in that picture?
Yes, right here and here.
So Timmy's kind of in front of him?
Yeah.
Was this around, like, this time frame? Is this about when you started noticing that something was going on?
Yeah, definitely. That's when it was like something, they're starting to exchange some, words.
Okay. You go ahead and sit down. Thank you. So, before you broke it up, did you see anything physical happen between the two of them? I know you've described the hearing words, but...
No, I didn't see anything physical. Just like the signs of like, these guys aren't too friendly with each other.
Okay. And do you recall speaking with the police about this incident that happened pretty soon time after it happened?
Yes.
Do you remember describing something to them that you had seen that was physical that happened between the defendant and Timmy?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
I didn't word that so well. Do you remember describing something that you had seen between the defendant and Timmy that was physical at that time?
I don't remember if I said something was physical or not.
Okay. Would it refresh your memory to see the report that the officer wrote about the conversation that you had?
Excuse me.
If I may approach, Sharon.
Of course.
So, Mr. Delee, you said you remember speaking with the police officer that night? I'm sorry, not that, but shortly after it happened. And do you recall, right now, do you recall if you'd seen anything that was physical that happened between the defendant and Timmy prior to you intervening?
I think that there was a little something. I forget exactly.
Okay. Would it refresh your memory to see what the officer wrote about the conversation that you had with him?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to read a section just yourself, not aloud.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take it back. I'm going to ask you if that refreshes your memory about what you saw at the bar.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you to start reading at the top of this paragraph right here, just to yourself.
Okay.
And I'm going to take it back and ask you if that refreshes your memory.
Yeah, that does refresh me.
Does that refresh your memory?
So, can you tell me, what do you remember seeing between the defendant
And Timmy, before you intervened.
They started to like get into it a little, and there was a little pushing and shoving going on, not much, and then that's when I went in and broke it up.
And do you recall who was pushing who at that point? Or did you not see that clearly?
John was pushing Timmy.
So when you went in to break this up, what did you actually do? Was it physical or verbal? Or what do you?
Not really too physical, just I was standing like 10 feet away, just went over there and like broke them both up, took them both off to the side and pretty much said, cut the shit, like everyone's just trying to have fun.
So did you actually have a conversation with the defendant at that point?
Yes.
Right. And what was that conversation? What did you say to him?
It was along the lines of, how could you even be starting like anything with this kid? He's so small. Like, I just didn't understand why there was tension between these two.
And how did the defendant respond to you?
He said that Timmy like called him something.
Do you remember what he said that Timmy called him?
I think he's called him a bitch.
How did you respond to that?
I was kind of like chuckled, like I'm like, how can someone that small like offend you in any way, really? Like I just didn't understand why there was, you know. So kind of like little dog barking at the big dog. I didn't understand why, you know, this was going on. Why he would take any offense to that.
What was the defendant's demeanor like when he was having this conversation with you?
We were both kind of laughing. Nothing serious, really.
Did he ever ask you for help? any time after this happened?
No.
Did he seem like he was scared of Timmy?
No.
Did he tell you he was scared of anybody else in the bar?
No.
What did the defendant do after this conversation that you had with him?
Pretty sure we just parted ways when we went down to the dance floor, if I remember correctly.
So at some point that night, did you again witness another altercation that was happening?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe what you saw at that point?
Someone jumped up and punched John in the face.
And just to be clear, did you see the actual punch that started it, or what did you see from where you were?
I kind of saw the aftermath of it. So once it happened, I guess turned around and saw that there was like a little fight going on.
And how did you react when you saw that?
Just like any normal fight, just split them both up, kicked them out.
So were you one of the people that actually helped take them out of the bar?
At the start, yes. Yeah.
How many people were involved in from the go in bringing the defendant out of the bar?
It's like 3 bouncers and the cop detail officer that was there.
Once they were outside of the goat, what did you do?
Once we got them out of the goat, just go back to normal. Carry on with the night.
At some point after that, did you wind up going outside of the goat?
Yes.
And why did that happen? What was going on?
Me and one of the other bouncers heard there was some commotion going on up the street, so we ran from the goat up the street to see what was going on.
And when you say up the street, which direction are you running in from the goat?
Right up the street to the SNHU arena, up that road.
What did you see as you left the bar and started going up Old Granite Street?
Saw some commotion. Saw when I ran up there. Saw Timmy was down. I thought he was just like knocked out or something. I saw John just pretty much just walking away in the other direction, and everyone else kind of like dispersing, running.
Okay. So when you say Timmy was down, what did you actually see as you were walking up towards him?
Well, I didn't hear anything. So when I first saw him, I just thought he maybe got I got punched. He was just knocked out. So I thought he was unconscious on the ground.
Was there anyone with him at that time?
I think Sarah was on top of him.
This is the same Sarah that you said was with him in the bar?
Mm-hmm.
What was Sarah doing?
She was trying to give him CPR / revive him, which I was confused about. So I pulled her off, and that's when I knew he was shot.
That was the first point that you realized that.
Yeah.
You said that you saw where the defendant was. Can you describe again what he was doing when you saw him at this point?
It's pretty much just walking away, away from where Timmy was lying. Just casually walking.
And what direction was he walking in?
He was walking kind of towards the alley behind Soho, that restaurant right there.
Were you still there when the police arrived?
Yes.
Okay, what did you see?
I saw them run in, their guns pulled, and get John on the ground, arrest him.
You just have a moment, Your Honor.
No further questions at this time. Mr. Delee, please answer the question.
Just a few questions, sir. After you broke up whatever happened between Timothy and John at the bar, you had the conversation with John, right?
Yes.
But you also had a conversation with Timothy, right?
Yes.
backing up, so make sure I'm asking the right question. Did you have a conversation with Timothy immediately after you had the conversation with John?
Yes.
And what was the conversation that you had with him? What did you say to him? What did you say to him?
It was along the lines of like, what are you doing? Why are you like talking shit with this huge kid? Like, I was confused why he would be participating in like the shit talk.
Did he give an explanation?
I go, yeah, like, what are you doing? He goes, don't worry, like, I do MMA,
Do you know what MMA is?
mixed martial arts.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need to give you a limiting instruction. So, sometimes evidence is admissible for one purpose and not another purpose. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Recess at this point, and then we'll resume. We're going to break just for your sort of thinking purposes. We'll come back in about 5 to 7 minutes at the most, and then we'll break at noon, and then I have to take an extended lunch break because I have another hearing, or I have some other hearings that I have to deal with. So we're going to go take a break from 12 to 1:30, and then we'll resume the testimony. Okay. Okay. So principally for the media, but also for any of the other participants of the audience, the next witness is the medical examiner, and I anticipate there'll be a number of sensitive photographs, including autopsy photographs. So if you wish to excuse yourself, certainly please do that, but you're welcome to stay. But I did enter a protective order with respect to the media not photographing, distributing, broadcasting photographs of the autopsy photos. So if do not, they'll be displayed on the screen, but just don't record those. You can certainly record the testimony, but just not the actual photographs or any of those exhibits. Okay. All right, and we'll take a 5-minute recess. Ready to call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Dr. Mitchell Weinberg.
Good morning. Before you're seated, if you could just raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat.
Morning, Dr. Weinberg.
Good morning.
There's water there for you if you
Thank
need
you.
it. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, Mitchell Weinberg, Weinberg.
And where are you currently employed, Doctor?
I'm employed at the New Hampshire Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, which is in Concord.
Okay. I'll give you a minute if you want to.
Thank you.
And what's your position at the Office of the Medical Examiner?
I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner in the office, which means I'm one of the forensic pathologists.
Can you explain what the duties are that are associated with that position?
Well, there's a number of different duties associated with my job, but the main one is what folks actually do tend to think of when they think of forensic pathology. One of my primary job duties is performing postmortem examinations. Generally, that means a full forensic autopsy for the purposes of determining a patient's cause and manner of death. And then there's all sorts of other job tasks that I have, educational, administrative, but those aren't so germane here, so I don't need to talk about them.
How long have you been in your current position?
I've been with the New Hampshire office about 3.5 years now.
Did you work as a forensic pathologist before that?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
In Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I worked there from 2012 until 2020.
Do you have any specialized education training that relates to this field?
Yes, of course. To become a forensic pathologist, one goes to university to get a bachelor's degree in something. Mine is in microbiology. I did that at the University of Florida. And then one goes to medical school because I am a physician. I did my medical school at the University of South Florida, completing that in 2008. Then, after medical school, one needs to do a general residency in anatomic pathology, and I did that at Ohio State University. The way I did it was a 3-year course of study, so I finished that in 2011. And then to become a forensic pathologist in North America, you have to do what's called a fellowship or subspecialty training, and that's when you really learn the nuts and bolts of becoming a forensic pathologist. I did that in Baltimore, Maryland, with the Maryland Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. And at that time, I had finished all of my training, all of my schooling. I was finally competent and ready to enter the workforce as a forensic pathologist. And then I took the job in Canada.
And so you're board certified?
Yes, I'm board certified by the American Board of Pathology in anatomic and forensic pathology.
Approximately how many autopsies do you believe you performed in your career?
At this stage of my career, it's probably somewhere in the 2,200 ballpark.
You've referenced this, but what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is a surgical type procedure. It's not surgery, certainly not in the same sense that a surgeon performs surgery on a living patient, but it's a surgical type procedure of a deceased individual for the purposes of documenting things like injury, the presence or absence thereof, natural disease processes, again, the absence or natural thereof, and then identifying features and demographic type information like hair color, height, weight, and that kind of thing. Again, for the primary purpose of determining that patient's cause and manner of death. That is sort of the ultimate work product that I produce for each case that I'm involved in.
And what is specifically meant in your field by cause and manner of death?
So the cause of death for any given patient is the disease process, injury, or substance toxicity that ultimately leads to a patient's death, no matter how short a time interval or how long a time interval. So examples would be things like metastatic pancreatic cancer. It could be blunt force trauma sustained in a motor vehicle incident. It could be stab wounds, either self-inflicted or inflicted by another person, or it could be gunshot wound trauma, again, inflicted by oneself, making the death of suicide or inflicted by another individual, making the manner of death homicide. And you asked about manner. That's the other one of the other big things that I do. The manner of death is a classification that I assign as a medical examiner relating to the circumstances of a patient's death. I only have 5 choices for manner of death, whereas cause of death, I can say essentially anything. It's free text. But manner of death is either natural, so a death due solely to natural disease processes, suicide, a death due to self-inflicted injury of some sort, homicide, death due to injury caused by some other person, or accident, a non-natural death where it wasn't quote-unquote intentional. And then in a small percentage of cases, for reasons that aren't really worth getting into here today, I have another option of an undetermined manner of death.
So just to be clear, if you make a determination of homicide, for example, that's not a legal definition, that's a medical definition?
No, I am a doctor, not a lawyer, and my classification is for my purposes of classifying the death. It is not a statement of legality or lack thereof. That is for entities such as a court.
Have you testified in court before in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, many times.
Do you have any estimate of how many times?
It's probably in the ballpark of 100 at this point in my career.
And has this been in multiple courts?
Yes.
Have you previously been qualified as an expert in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, I have.
At this time, I'd ask that the court recognize Dr. Weinberg to be qualified as an expert under Rule 702.
He may offer his opinions.
So I'd like to turn your attention now to January 29th of 2023. Did you perform an autopsy on the body of Timothy Pouliot?
Yes, I did.
And as part of your autopsy process, do you prepare a report?
Yes, I do.
Along with the written portion of your report, do you include photos and diagrams?
In some cases, yes. If I think it is necessary or illustrative, I will include a diagram as an attachment to the text of the autopsy report, and photographs are taken in virtually every case.
And about how many photographs did you take in this case?
In this case, I went back and looked, and I believe the number is 155.
Were there detectives present for this autopsy?
Yes, there were.
And did they take photographs as well?
I think so, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. They probably did that. That would be very standard practice.
And is there standard practice that they take photographs throughout the process that you are doing at the same time that you are?
Generally, different detectives have different levels of experience, and some need more or less guidance from me about what photos to take. Generally, they kind of just follow right behind me, and if I take a photo, they know it's something of relevance, and they tend to do so themselves.
Did you also do a diagram? You said sometimes you do or don't do diagrams. In this particular case, did you do a diagram?
Yes, I did. Well, I guess I want to be clear. So when I say a diagram here, I mean a formal diagram that is meant to be attached to the actual autopsy report. In every case, I have little diagrams that I'm taking my notes on for the purposes of creating my autopsy report, but in not every case do I create an actual diagram as part of the autopsy report. I tend to do it in cases involving what I call as a forensic pathologist penetrating trauma, things like gunshot wounds or stab wounds, just because they tend to be illustrative to the reader of where those injuries are on a body.
And so in this particular case, did you create this more formal diagram that you're referring to?
Yes, I did.
If I may approach the witness hearing.
Okay.
the state moves to strike the ID on these photographs, but actually,
What
be
numbers?
specific.
Yeah.
So it states Exhibit 36 through states Exhibit 42.
Okay. 36 through 42, the IDs may be stricken.
Dr. Weinberg, now that these are full exhibits, I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to publish now what's State's Exhibit 36, which I believe you previously identified as being this formal diagram that you drew. I'm sorry, created, I should say it's more.
Sure.
So, first of all, do you recognize this as being the diagram that you included with your report with regard to Mr. Pouliot's autopsy?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you describe for the jury what this diagram shows and what its purpose is for you?
Yes. So this diagram has a sort of generic adult male figure standing in what I call the standard anatomic position, with the hands down to the side and the palms facing out. That's because that is the standard with which penetrating injuries are described by forensic pathologists in North America. And so in this particular diagram, I decided I didn't want it to get overly complex and overly annotated, so I've just listed with numbers that correspond to numbers in the text of my autopsy report, locations of what I determined to be entry gunshot wounds, and actually, well, including one re-entry wound.
Okay. And actually, you had captioned, I believe it's small writing there, but entry gunshot wounds at the top of this diagram, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you've used numbers on this diagram to indicate different locations of these entry wounds?
Correct.
Do the numbers reflect an order in which you believe the wounds were inflicted?
No, they do not. No. The numbering is honestly pretty arbitrary. It's somewhat based on just the order in which I see and start documenting in my report. The numbering is a method for me to organize things, and I want to be very clear, it does not reflect anything about the severity of a particular injury, nor of the order in which the gunshot wounds were sustained. It's for organizational purposes.
Okay. And so to be clear, in this case, were you able to make a determination about the order in which the wounds were inflicted?
No, not really. There's one wound where there's primary entry on an extremity and then re-entry into the torso, and I can tell that that's a single wound path and that the extremity was struck first. But aside from that, the overall order of the gunshot wounds, no, I do not have a way to make any determination about that.
So you've described these as entry wounds. How are you able to tell the difference between an entry and an exit wound?
The simple answer is they generally look different. This is why you have all the schooling and the training and the experience. Entry wounds entry gunshot wounds, that is, tend to have a circular or slightly ovoid type of appearance. They're sort of punched out because the tissue is actually disrupted and taken away by the projectile. Very often, an entry wound will have something called a marginal abrasion, which is just a thin rim of abrasion around that wound edge. And in contrast, exit wounds tend to be more slit-like. They can be reapproximated because the tissue isn't physically gone the way it is. And so the vast majority of the time when I am evaluating gunshot wounds, it is pretty straightforward for me to distinguish what is an entry and what is an exit wound.
I'm going to ask if you could come down and approach the diagram that's there. And can you just walk us through, again, since we're dealing with a black and white diagram, it's a little dark, what this diagram is showing in terms of where the actual entry wounds are that you observed?
Sure. I guess in what sense are you asking?
If you could just indicate for us, we're seeing numbers on there, but could you just point it out for the jury, I guess, where you were actually seeing? And there's actually one on there marked re-entry wound, so if you could just explain the difference for us.
Okay, so most of these numbers are simply the numbers that correspond to the text of my report of where the entry wound for a particular gunshot wound is located. So with any gunshot wound, there is, by definition, going to be an entry somewhere on the body, and then either the bullet exits, and there's a corresponding exit wound, which I did not put on this diagram to not overly complicate it, or there's a retained projectile. That's basically accurate. There's some slight exceptions that aren't worth getting into, and they're not applicable in this particular case. So these are only the locations of the entry wounds on Mr. Pouliot's body that I observed. So this is the right arm, there's a wound here, front of the left shoulder, there's one. This one here, and this is meant to correspond to kind of the upper left flank or armpit area. This is the one that is a re-entry wound, and I believe that pairs with this entry, number 7. So this is a wound that went through the upper left arm. The bullet exits the body through the left arm, but then because of the positioning, it then re-entered the body in the torso. And that kind of thing with re-entry gunshot wounds can't happen when the initial entry is to an extremity. So we do see that sometimes as forensic pathologists. But in this case, I'm very confident that it's a single gunshot wound path. And then on this other side are more entry wounds. Here, one on the left side of the back, one on the right side of the back, 2 kind of on the very low back or upper right buttocks region. And I believe there may be one more, although I might not have put that on the diagram to the right hand. Oh, I did. There it is. That letter B is a graze type wound to the right hand.
Thank you.
Oh, that's helpful.
So, Dr. Weinberg, you had discussed the fact that there were hundreds of photos that were taken during this autopsy. I'm not going to have you go through all of those, but there are a few that I would like to have you explain for us.
Sure.
So I am going to show State's Exhibit 37, which is going to show us one of these, and this is referring to wound number 9, or on the diagram, I believe you also have it as C in your report. So can you explain to us, we're seeing a lot of different numbers in this photo. Can you explain to us what we're seeing here?
So these different numbers correspond to just different wound numbers that I assigned. As I'm going through the exam, I start identifying defects and or wounds, and I start numbering them so that I can document them and get things organized. When there are multiple gunshot wounds, it's kind of a process that the pathologist goes through during the course of the examination. You determine what's an entry wound and what's an exit wound, and then for entry-exit wounds, you either have to pair them or you pair a retained bullet to an entry wound. So in this particular photograph, you can see there's a fair bit of injury to this region of Mr. Pouliot's body, right? So I think it's pretty obvious that we're looking at his left upper extremity and the left side of his chest in front of the shoulder region. And there are multiple wounds that are visible here. Some are entry, some are exit. Yes, that's what we're seeing here. And I think it shows, although not as well as I would have hoped so, like the 3 and the 1 are actually an 11 and a 13, because just we don't have numbers that go up that high, so I just hand wrote in show that it's an 11 and a 13 for my numbering purposes. That's all that is.
So you can actually almost see there's a ballpoint pen or something.
Yes, that's literally me writing it with my pen. So a lot of injury to this region of the patient's body.
So if we're looking at wound number 9 as it's marked on here, which is an entry wound, does it have a corresponding exit wound that you located?
So at this time, I should probably ask if I may refer to my own autopsy report to make sure that I'm getting these details correct for questioning purposes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Wound 9. Yes, wound 9 does have a corresponding exit wound. It's not in the diagram, but it is visible in this photograph as the wound just below the sticker with the 8 on it. So the 9 and the 8, those wounds connect to each other as a through and through wound.
So can you explain the purpose of the metal rod that we're seeing in this photo?
Yes, the purpose of the metal rod is to help me, the pathologist, identify where wound paths are going, and it helps me determine what wound pairs with what retained projectile or what exit wound. I don't want to guess. This is how we do it. We take probes and we follow wound paths inside the body that have been made by a gunshot wound, by a bullet as it passes through the body.
So is it fair to say that that rod helps you map the trajectory within the body of where the bullet has passed?
Yes, that's a decent way to phrase it.
So were you able to determine what type of damage was caused by wound 9?
Yes, this gunshot wound injures muscles in the arm as well as the left humerus, which is the arm bone.
And obviously a serious injury. If this was the only gunshot wound that Timothy Pouliot had received, and he received immediate medical attention, would you expect this type of injury to be survivable?
Yes.
We can also see gunshot wounds in this photo labeled, I think you started explaining this, but it appears 3, 10, and 11, given I understand the numbers are a little difficult. Are those entry or exit wounds?
The 13 is re-entry. So that's not 3, that's the 13.
Sorry,
and that's re-entry, I believe. Yes. 10 and 11 are exit wounds.
And you've explained to us how you can tell that difference in your examination.
Yes.
Are you able to tell a trajectory in terms of upward or downward or left or right in a particular bullet, or can you explain that process to us?
You mean with the wound we're talking about in particular? Yes, for every gunshot wound that I document, I do document the directionality in 3 axes, but to be clear, that directionality is given with respect to that anatomic position that you saw in the diagram. So, to be clear, from my examination, there's relatively little that I can say about an individual's position at the time he sustained those particular gunshot wounds. So, especially when you're talking about extremity wounds, when you're talking about extremities, which can move very, very freely, directionality may or may not actually mean all that much in the real world. But yes, for every gunshot wound, I do give a directionality. It's just a matter of how much it might actually mean based on the circumstances.
Okay. So for example, it would be different if a person's standing straight up versus if they are laying down when they are shot, in terms of what that directionality means?
Well, no, I will describe the directionality with respect to that standard anatomic position of the patient standing up. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the true direction that the bullet traveled, because, for example, if I had a wound path that went, say, from the shoulder and then out the lower back, I would describe it as a very downward wound path. But if the individual was leaning forward when that gunshot wound was sustained, right, that tells you something different about how the bullet actually traveled. I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well, but I guess what I want the jury to understand is the wound directionality I describe is somewhat divorced because I can't say with certainty what position an individual was in when those wounds were sustained.
So you're describing it in terms of, yes, from their own body.
Yes, yes. So wound path is described as being up or down, left or right, and front or back. Those three axes.
So with regard to this particular wound, this entry at 9 and exiting at 8, what was the direction noted?
The directionality for this wound path is front to back, right to left, and downward.
All right, I'm going to show you another photo, and this relates to wound number 6, or I believe you had it as A.
Okay.
And can you explain to us this wound and what you were able to determine about its path?
Yes, wound 6 is on the front of Mr. Pouliot's right arm. This is very clearly an entry wound, both from its appearance and from the fact that it is associated with a retained bullet, so there's no exit wound associated with this particular wound. This is a pretty superficial injury from a pathology perspective. It injures some muscles, but it doesn't even injure the bone. So this, too, is a relatively minor injury. I recovered the bullet and turned that over to law enforcement as evidence, as is standard.
And so if this, as we discussed with the other one, if this had been the only gunshot wound that Timothy Pouliot received, especially with immediate medical attention, would that be a survivable injury?
Yes.
So we've been talking about the two locations where Timothy Pouliot was shot in the front. I want to ask you now about some of the locations where he was shot in the back.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you about wound number 4, where you have it as Q.
Okay.
So I'm showing you States Exhibit 40. You can see a number of different wounds in this photo. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. With regard to wound number 4, can you explain to us what you were able to determine about this wound?
Yes. Wound 4 is the entry site is the very low right side of the back or upper buttocks region, kind of the border between those two body regions. This particular wound does go in and injure intra-abdominal structures such as the intestines, the stomach, the spleen, and then ultimately the bullet is just beneath the skin in Mr. Pouliot's left flank. So this is a little bit more serious injury than the two we've talked about thus far.
And you said that this is a more serious injury. If somebody sustained this injury, what would you expect for a prognosis by itself with current medical treatment?
With current medical treatment, so there was nothing with this injury that would be immediately life-threatening. So if the patient were able to get to a hospital pretty quickly, the patient would be assessed by emergency doctors and surgeons. I'm not a clinician, so I don't want to go too far down this road, but this likely would have required intra-abdominal surgery to correct some of the injured organs like the intestines and the stomach. However, I am confident saying to this court that with modern medical care, this is something that should have been survivable.
So I'm going to ask you next about wound number 5, which is, H in your report.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at the same photo again. This is State's Exhibit 40. Is it documented in here, or flagged in here as well, in this photograph?
Yes. So entry wound 5 is just slightly below entry or wound 4, also on the upper right buttocks region.
Okay. And can you tell us what the damage was that you observed that was caused by that bullet?
Yes, this gunshot wound is fairly similar to the one we just talked about in that it also enters the abdominal cavity. It injures the intestines a couple of times, just because of the way the bowel loops. That's pretty common. And this one also is associated with a retained bullet, which I recovered and turned over to law enforcement as evidence. Similar to what I said with the last wound, nothing immediately life-threatening, no large blood vessels that were injured, and with modern medical and surgical care, I would expect this to be a survivable injury.
So I'm going to ask you next about wound B. You had indicated for us on the diagram that related to Timothy Pouliot's hand. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 42.
Okay.
Can you explain what we're looking at in this photograph?
This is injury to Mr. Pouliot's right hand, specifically the 4th and 5th fingers from a grazed gunshot wound. So this is where the bullet just barely makes contact with the body. It doesn't truly enter or exit, it just grazes it. And this, of course, is not a life-threatening injury.
So I want to ask you now about wound number 7, or D, that you have in your report.
Okay.
And I'm going to be showing you 2 photographs together and ask you had talked about this idea of showing an entry wound, then an exit wound, a re-entry, and a re-exit. I believe this was the bullet that had that trajectory.
Correct.
So I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 37 and 39 together. Can you explain to us what we're seeing here in terms of the trajectory that this bullet took?
Yes. Is this? No, it's not a pointer. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think
It's okay.
I don't mind coming down.
It's easier, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure the jury understands on this one. So, with this particular gunshot wound, the initial contact with Mr. Pouliot's body is here. So, kind of back of the left shoulder, general region. It passes through the upper left arm. Exits here. So this is Mr. Pouliot's left armpit. Exits here, and then travels a very, very short distance to re-enter the body on the very upper left flank. Again, you can sort of call it the armpit region. Then re-enters the body in the torso, where the wound path continues and does cause injury to some significant anatomic structures in Mr. Pouliot's chest.
And which were those structures that were injured by this bullet?
So there was injury to some of the ribs in the left upper flank, but more significantly, the left lung was injured by this gunshot wound. And that resulted in bleeding into the left chest cavity, something that's medically called hemothorax, but that is an abnormal or pathologic accumulation of blood in the chest cavity, in part because of this gunshot wound. There were multiple gunshot wounds that ultimately contributed to the blood in the left side of the chest.
And this is one of them.
This is one of them, correct.
I'm going to show you now State's Exhibit 40. Does this show you where that bullet exited after?
Yes.
Where did that bullet exit?
The
Mr. Pouliot.
the wound with the number 3 by it is the exit wound for the wound that we've been talking about for the last couple of minutes.
So you've talked about how serious the nature of that particular bullet was, where it passed through the body. Is that a life-threatening injury?
Yes.
What you observed in the body. I want to ask you now about wound number 2, or E. I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 40 and 41 together.
Okay.
Can you see the entrance and the exit of this wound that you were able to identify?
Yes, the entry is on the left side of the upper back, kind of below the shoulder blade.
I'm sorry to keep making you walk up, but do you mind just walking over and just showing us?
So, the wound with the number 2 by it. That's the entry that we're talking about now.
And were you able to identify where it exited the body?
Yes. This bullet traveled through the chest, and ultimately I figured out that it connects with this wound here. That, again, excuse my very bad artistic skills, but that's supposed to be an 11. Wound 11. That's the exit wound that corresponds with this entry wound, and so it should be, I think, pretty clear that that bullet would have passed through the chest, and again, caused injury to important anatomic structures in the chest, specifically, again, the left lung. So this wound also contributes to that left-sided hemothorax, or blood accumulation in the left side of the chest cavity.
So, again, another serious injury that you're describing. Is the injury caused by this bullet life-threatening?
Yes.
And then I'm going to show you. We're going to talk about one last injury, one last wound. Number 1, or F, that also entered in the back. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 40 and 41. Ask if you can show us where the entrance and the exit of this wound are.
So now we're talking about this entry wound on the right side of the back with the number 1 by it. And this, I determined, ultimately corresponded with exit wound number 10. Also to the front of the left shoulder, left upper chest region. And so with this wound path, you can see that it crosses from the right side of the chest to the left side of the chest. And again, as a result of the bullet passing through the body, there is injury to the right lung, the aorta, which is the very largest blood vessel in the body that takes blood from the heart and ultimately to pretty much the entire body. So injury to the aorta is very, very serious, and also strikes the left lung as well prior to exiting. So this wound is associated with over 1 liter of blood in the right side of the chest, and it also contributes to the bleeding into the left side of the chest.
So I think you've characterized it, but this is clearly a life-threatening wound as well.
Yes, this is a wound that I would expect to be very quickly life-threatening.
And so, in terms of that time frame, is this a wound that even if somebody is receiving immediate medical attention, you would expect could be life-threatening by itself?
Yes, I would agree with that statement.
So I'm going to show you your diagram again, and on this I've circled these 3 gunshot wounds that you've described. So number 1, number 2, and number 7 that are all in the back. What was the overall impact of these 3 gunshot wounds that involved the back of the upper torso?
The collective injury from these 3 gunshot wounds was definitely the most physiologically significant contributor to Mr. Pouliot's death. These are the gunshot wounds that injure the most critical structures, namely both lungs and the aorta, and they are collectively responsible for almost 2 liters of blood into the chest, and I guess I need to give some reference for that. An average-sized adult male has approximately 5 liters of total blood volume, and so to have approximately 40%, or maybe a little bit less due to Mr. Pouliot's size, of the blood volume lost rapidly due to injury into the chest cavities is a very quickly life-threatening type of situation.
And I'm going to show you your diagram again. And now we're looking at wounds 6 and 9, which were the 2 that were in the front. If Mr. Pouliot had only sustained those 2 front injuries, would you have expected that to be fatal?
No.
And at the beginning, you were talking to us a little bit about cause and manner of death, that that's one of the primary purposes that you have for conducting the autopsy. In this case, what did you determine regarding the cause and manner of Timothy Pouliot's death?
I determined his cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds and the manner of death as homicide.
I just have another question for you. Were you, as part of your documentation of Mr. Pouliot, did you determine his height and weight?
Yes, that's a standard part of every postmortem exam that I perform.
And what were those?
So Mr. Pouliot was 67 inches in height, so 5'7" or 170 centimeters, with a weight of 121 pounds or 55 kilograms.
Let me have a moment. State has no further questions. Maybe Dr. Weinberg, defense may have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Step down.
Yes, sir.
Can you just approach? State. So we're going to go about 15 more minutes, start the next witness. Yeah, you order.
The state would call Detective Morgan Lovejoy.
Thank you. Just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir.
Detective Lovejoy, if you can just state and spell your last name for the record.
Morgan Lovejoy, Lovejoy.
And where do you work, Detective Lovejoy?
Manchester Police Department in the city of Manchester.
And how long have you worked there?
Almost 15 and a half years.
And what did you do before that?
I was an elementary school teacher here in Manchester.
A little bit of different work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Specific to Manchester PD, what's your assignment with Manchester?
I'm a detective sergeant in the investigations division.
And were you a detective sergeant in investigative division back in January of 2023?
Yes, I was.
And what type of cases fall within your supervisory capacity?
Anything from thefts and burglaries all the way up to robberies, stabbing, shootings, homicides.
And as a detective sergeant, what's your role?
I typically help oversee those cases. I'm not a lead investigator. I'm not physically on the ground collecting video or doing crime scenes or interviews, but I'm kind of behind the scenes just helping run the investigation from inside the PD.
answering questions if they come up,
Yes.
make sure they have resources, things
Yes.
like that.
Yep.
Okay. I want to take you back to Saturday, January 28th, 2023, where you assigned as a detective sergeant on the investigation into the shooting of Timothy Pouliot.
Yes, I was.
And as part of your role, have you reviewed some of that surveillance footage that was collected by investigating officers?
Yes, I have.
What video recordings and surveillance footage were you able to review?
Quite a few from out there. There was inside the goat. There was cell phone video taken by a bystander from inside the goat. Cell phone video from outside on Old Granite Street. 20 Old Granite Street, 36 Old Granite Street, 54 Old Granite Street, 64 Old Granite Street, and across the street at the Southern New Hampshire parking garage, and then the Canoco gas station at 570 Elm Street. That was lesser quality. And then we also tried to collect video from the Bank of America at 620 Elm Street, and then SNHU Arena across the street, but those last two did not capture anything relevant to this investigation.
Okay, the Southern New Hampshire footage and the Bank of America?
Yes.
Okay. You said 20 Old Granite Street. Is that the Soho Bistro?
Yes, it is.
All right. And just so we're aware, about how many different clips of different angles and with all these different cameras that were out there, about how many clips of video was there?
There was hundreds. We had around 400 from the goat inside alone.
Okay. And then more from all the other establishments outside?
Yes.
And are we talking minutes, hours of recordings?
There was hours of video.
And were you and investigators able to narrow down which clips actually captured what happened before, during, and after the shooting?
Yes, we were.
Right. And I'm not going to obviously take you through every single clip, but I want to talk about some of the ones you said that were more relevant to this case. So before we get going, do you recognize the people in these photographs?
Yes, I do.
And can you just state their identifications and what they're wearing?
Yes, the top of the screen is John Delee, wearing a very distinct black and white North Face sweatshirt with a winter cap on. Bottom left is Gage Chandler, wearing a 3/4 zip tan or brown sweater. The bottom right is Matthew Saldano. He's wearing a blue sweater with a winter cap.
Thank you. And how about this slide?
Top of the screen will be Timothy Pouliot. He's wearing a black long sleeve shirt. The gold chain has very distinct yellow hair. Bottom left will be Trenton Nash. He's wearing a black jacket with a Bass Pro baseball cap on. And Michael Mendoza is the bottom right, wearing a very distinct black and white robe type sweater garment.
So,
Sorry, for the record, did these have IDs?
yes, you're. These were. I apologize. These are stills from State's Exhibit 43A, B, C, D, and F. All right, so are these still images from some of the surveillance that you reviewed?
Yes, these are from inside the goat, Barnville.
So you described their clothing. Were you able to follow these individuals throughout the footage, inside the goat, outside the goat, and through the various cameras that you talked about?
Yes, we were. The only thing to note, the bottom two gentlemen, once they're outside, Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash both remove their jackets. So you see Mr. Nash on the left has a white shirt underneath, and Mr. Mendoza has a black shirt underneath, and they'll be at some point down the road, minus the jackets and those shirts.
Okay, thank you. Now this is State's Exhibit 33, which has been entered and talked about. Looking past State's Exhibit 33 onto State's Exhibit 44, are these different colors depicting camera angles for cameras that you found within the GOAT?
Yes, they are.
Okay. We're going to look through some of these just to be clear. We can see what look to be, I guess, angles. Are these exact angles of the cameras?
No, they're approximate. There's a lot of overlapping. You view these different camera angles.
Okay. So there's some overlap. So I just put a yellow X on the screen. So, for example, if we were looking at something that occurred at the yellow X on Made in Sidebar 2, that might also be captured by Pool Table Cam.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And can you just describe for us, as far as these different cameras, was the footage captured just a one continuous stream, or did it record in clips, in segments?
No, there was no continuous. It was multiple clips. It was kind of chunky, if you will. You get 30 seconds here, a minute there. There was no continuous video collected.
And you were saying different lengths to each clip?
Yes, there was. Yeah, it's a very difficult system to navigate for our detectives. Took us 4 or 5 times to get all the video, but there is multiple chunk clips, I guess is the best way to describe that.
Okay. So let's start with Pool Table Cam. For these interior surveillance cameras, so all 3 of those cameras that we talked about, was there any sound recorded, or is that just video?
Inside the goat is just video. There's no audio.
So this is State's Exhibit 45. So before I hit play, can you just tell us where we should be looking, help orient us, and describe who we can see in the boxes?
The red box at the top will be John Delee. At this point in time, he's on the right side of the right box. He's at his back to the camera. You see his black sweatshirt and hat there. Bottom right in the yellow box, you'll see Timothy Pouliot, Trenton Nash, Mike Mendoza, and there's also 3 females there. During the investigation, we learned that those are associates of Mr. Delee, Mr. Soldano, Mr. Chandler. It's going to be Abby Elliott, Olivia Leonardo, and Nicole Bergeron.
And this clip is approximately 35 seconds long. Is there anywhere we should be focusing our attention?
In the middle, at the bottom of the right box, you'll see Matthew Soldano, Gage Chandler behind him. They're going to walk up to John Delee, and at the end of the clip, John Delee will walk down to the group in the yellow box and begin speaking with Abby.
So I'm going to play that now. So going on to State's Exhibit 46. Same camera angle?
Yes.
Has this been zoomed in?
Yes, it has. It's a close-up.
Okay. And as far as timing of what we're seeing from this clip to the last clip, is this minutes later, or is this the next clip?
It's right where we just left off on when John Delee approaches Abby. So going back to our diagram here and moving back over to the Made in Sidebar 2, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 47. Again, similar, can you just help orient us to where we should be looking and what we might see? Yep, this is so the red box on the bottom or top of the screen. You have Mr. Delee there with the sweatshirt on. In the middle of the screen, it's hard to see right now, but you can see Mr. Mendoza's distinct black and white sweater robe.
Detective, not to interrupt you, I apologize. If you want to step down while you're pointing.
Yeah, it might be easier. John Delee is right here. Mike Mendoza, Timothy Pouliot are going to be heading up the ramp right here. Eventually make their way up over to the yellow box. behind this group of gentlemen right here is the 3 girls right there. They're going to come up and talk to them for about a minute, minute and a half. Then the 3 girls are going to come back down the ramp, talk to Mr. Delee, and Michael Mendoza and Timothy Pouliot are going to end up over here by the bar.
And similarly, about how long after the last clip was this? Are we talking a short time or a long time?
No, short period of time.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to play this clip. Again, no sound, correct?
Yes, there's no audio from inside the goat.
And if you could, Detective, when you see Abby start walking away, if you could just point that out for us.
Okay. She's going to be walking down the ramp right now with 2 friends close behind.
All right, so moving forward, just want to ask you, we've watched a couple clips here, and for the jurors' perspective with the actual exhibits that they have, when they open the clip, it might look a little different as far as the player that's going to launch with it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is this the general format that it will launch with?
Yes, there's a couple different media players I can do on my computer, but this is one format that you might see, yes.
So if you open it with a program called VLC, this might be what they see?
Yes.
Okay. And can you just walk us through, there's obviously a call-out box there zooming in. I think the standard play button, does that play the video?
Yes, that's the large one right there on the bottom left.
And then if we move a little bit forward to the right, we have the stop feature, obviously, in the middle of that box.
Yep, that's square, yes.
And then to the left and right, that skips to the end or the beginning.
Yep, you rewind and fast forward, yes.
Okay. And then the red dot, that's obviously a recording. That's not going to help you play anything. The photo button, that's not going to help you play anything. The A and B button, do you know what that does?
I do not know what that does now.
Neither do I. And that next button, the sideways triangle with the line behind it, is that to go kind of in a frame by frame or slow motion?
Yeah, that would slow it down for you, yes.
Okay. All right.
Chase, is this a good time for you?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right, so we will break until 1:30, so we'll see you back. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to remind you, it's important, and I think I reminded you of this yesterday, not to read or see or pay attention to anything that's going on in the media, social media, online, news. That includes anything you may see happening out in the, anything that may be relevant to this case. Don't go back to the View, I told you that. So you're not allowed to be influenced by anything outside of what happens here in the courtroom and what you saw on The View. And you also need to continue to keep in mind that you need to decide the case based without passion, without prejudice, and without sympathy. This is a dispassionate process that you need to come at with that perspective. And if you have any concerns about anything along the way, feel free to make sure to tell the bailiffs about it and bring it to my attention. And if it is an issue, I'll address it with you. And if it isn't, then everything is fine. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, come on, back up. Oh, you're already you're before.
Thank you, Detective. All right, so I think this is the slide we had just finished up on. So moving ahead to State's Exhibit 48.
Would you believe there's a technological issue?
In fairness to the lawyers, I have been dealing with other cases, so they haven't been in here and been able to play with the technology since.
My apologies.
Thank you.
The whole restart thing. Do you mind just doing the lights? Thank you. All right, so again, this is where we left off. So going back to the pool table cam, I'm going to play State's Exhibit 48. Before I hit play, similar to before, can you describe what general areas those boxes are detailing and where we should be looking?
Yeah, this just left off in the previous clip. The yellow box is where Timothy Pouliot and Michael Mendoza are talking to the three females. And down the bottom right, big red box, is Mr. Delee down there. In this clip, you'll see the three females walk back down towards Mr. Delee.
Okay. Is this one of those overlaps that we were talking about?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And just to refresh kind of everyone's memory, the last clip we had watched was the interaction between Timothy and Olivia in that group at the bar. Mr. Mendoza,
Yes.
Abby, and
yes.
then we saw the woman walk back down to Mr. Delee's area.
Yeah, this one looks like a shorter version of just a different view inside the goat.
All right, so this one's about 40 seconds. Okay. Going on to State's Exhibit 49. Can you describe what we're seeing here?
It's just a continuation of the previous clip. You'll see down here. It's a little bit further ahead, actually, a minute or so. John Delee talking to 3 females with Gage and Matthew down the bottom right. The yellow box is where, at this point, Timothy Pouliot is now seated at a bar up there. In the middle of the box is a female with blonde hair. You can very vaguely make out Timmy's head of hair behind her. But in the yellow box, that's where Timothy is seated right now. And you'll see John Delee looking up in that direction, and then he's going to walk up to the bar, have an interaction with Timothy.
Okay. And this is about a minute and a half or so.
Yes, that's accurate.
Detective, who just walked up in that tan sweatshirt?
That's Gage Chandler.
Okay. Do you mind just stepping down and pointing him out? Okay. And I want to bounce back up to the main and sidebar camera. That captures that area of the bar, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, States 50, can you just quickly point out what we're seeing there?
Same as the last clip, just a different angle right here. Red box is where Delee is with his associates down there, the females, and Saldana and Chandler. And then up top of the yellow box, you can see Timothy seated at the bar right there by himself.
And this clip is a little bit longer. It's about 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Given the length of it, can you give us just a general overview on where we should be looking kind of as the video progresses?
I guess there's several parts here. When we left off last time, you saw Gage and John Delee up there. After the interaction between Delee and Pouliot, you'll see a couple of bouncers. Can I go over here again?
Absolutely. Thank you, Detective.
See a couple of bouncers coming here, intervene. Gage is going to end up over here for the duration of the video, top of the ramp. John Delee will talk to bouncers momentarily. He's going to walk back down the ramp where the girls are to Matthew. As time passes, Timothy is eventually going to come down here too. He's going to be talking to the bouncers as well. He's going to walk down here to talk to Miss Mendoza. You can see that the same coat, that's him right there. And then there's going to be an interaction between Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Delee. The bouncers are again going to come in, separate that interaction. You're going to see all involved parties coming up the ramp, up around this way, out towards the entrance, either escorted out by staff or walking out with their friends.
Thank you, Detective. Yeah, so our place States 50. All right, so the beginning part of that video, given the angles of the cameras, I'm assuming a pool table cam also caught part of that?
Yeah, so that one does reach up to the main bar area.
Okay. So looking ahead to states 51, and again, we're going back to that pool table cam looking up. Is that area where that interaction occurred that we just saw?
Yes.
The beginning part of the interaction.
Yes, John Delee is already up, standing over Timmy, who's seated at the bar, right there in the red box.
Okay, and this clip's shorter, 15 to 20 seconds?
Yes, I believe this is a quicker clip, yes.
All right, so right after that, we saw in the last clip, the defendant comes down the ramp eventually.
Yes, at the top of the ramp, we'll talk to bouncers momentarily before coming back down. This group of friends.
And does the next clip capture that?
Yes.
This is State's Exhibit 52. What's happening in that box right there?
That's where John Delee is talking with staff from the GOAT.
Okay. And before I hit play, what should we be looking for from this camera angle?
This would be Mr. Delee walking back down here along the tabletop bar. And he'll be talking to Matthew and the three females at the bottom of the ramp.
Okay. And once they're down there, anything of significance happen?
Eventually, Timmy's going to come to the top of the ramp as well, make his way down. That's where he speaks to Mr. Mendoza.
So State's Exhibit 52. So the next clip is State's Exhibit 53. Does this next clip pick up where this one's leaving off?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Where should we be focusing as we're watching State's 53?
I'm really focusing down at the bottom of the ramp. Mr. Delee is right there in the North Face sweatshirt. You're going to see Mr. Pouliot come down the ramp.
Detective, sorry to interrupt you. Do you mind hopping
Oh,
down?
yeah, sorry. I apologize. So right now, Timmy's up here talking to staff. Come down the ramp. Talk to Mike Mendoza right here. You're going to see the interaction between Mike Mendoza and Jonathan Delee right here. And then they're all going to be escorted up their ramp right there.
Yeah.
So right here is what we want to focus on.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. So again, State's 53.
Moving ahead.
Do you recognize this clip?
Yes, I do.
This is States 54. This looks a little bit different than the footage we just watched. Where was this footage taken from?
This is taken by a patron at the bar. The last clip, if you notice, there's somebody with a cell phone standing up and you see a blinking light. There's a bystander taking cell phone video. And this is what this is right here.
Okay. Obviously, I was turning the speaker up, but does this have sound?
Yes, this one has audio and video for it.
Okay. Going back to the goat surveillance from that video, did the main bar window catch the rest of that exit from the bar?
Yes, this one does not cover the interaction, but it covers all parties being escorted out or leaving the goat.
Okay. And no sound on this one, or is there sound?
No, it's from the goats. We're back to just video.
And if you can, I apologize, lots of video. If you can come down and just point where we should be looking, where people are going to be coming from and going to.
So everybody's going to be coming up from off camera right here, top the ramps right about here. You're going to walk up this way. You're going to see Mendoza and Nash first, followed by Delee, Solgano. Chandler goes before them, but they're all coming out this way right here. At the end of the video, right about here in the middle, you're going to see an interaction between Timothy Pouliot and Abby Elliott.
All right. Thank you, Detective. Not sure if I said it, so States 55. Okay, so now let's move outside. So this is States 2. We've seen this before. A different version of this is States 56. Looks a little chaotic. Can you describe for us what we're seeing in this diagram?
Yeah. This is an aerial view, just to orient everybody. This is Granite Street, heading westbound towards the Granite Street Bridge. Old Granite Street, kind of runs parallel to it. Franklin Street runs this way. Hampshire Lane runs through here. This is Elm Street, north-south, so the SNH Arena will be here off screen. Each color is going to kind of differentiate or notate cameras that we were able to recover during this investigation.
Any significance other than differentiation?
Color-wise, no, it's just to give a better idea of which cameras where.
Okay. And for purposes of just our understanding in the record, we can see, again, similar angles to in the bar. Are those, laser measured perfect angles, or are those approximations?
No, everything here is approximate.
Okay. I noticed that as we move in front of 36 Old Granite Street, or Makerspace, there's several different numbers. So there's 2 numbers for the camera right on Old Granite Street. Then it looks like there's a number in between Exhibit 58 and then Exhibit 60 and 61. What was that camera depicting? Or what was that clip depicting?
36 Old Granite Street is here, depicted by the blue. That's going to give you a view westerly on Old Granite Street. The red one right here is from 54 Old Granite Street. That's going to have audio and video. That's going to give you a view easterly on Old Granite Street. So kind of when you sync 36 and 54, it's going to give you a full street view and kind of capture everything, the events out there. You'll notice when you're viewing from 54 Old Granite Street, there's a goat sign hanging out off the building. It kind of obstructs. So I'm stopping here. You'll hear audio, but again, you won't be able to see it. But 36 Old Granite Street will give you that broader picture where it all comes together. If that makes sense.
So I'm going to break this down a little bit. I think it's self-explanatory, but let's just go through it a little bit because there's a lot of colors going on. So, so right here, we can see EX65. What camera angles and where is that business?
This is Soho, right here, Bar & Grill or Bistro. That's 20 Old Granite Street. There's one camera that's going to cover out into Old Granite Street. And there's a side camera here that's going to cover down Hampshire Lane and over the backside of the Canoco parking lot.
Okay. And you just explained the cameras from 36 Old Granite and 54, so I'll skip past that, and then we can see I'm not sure what color that is, a pink-purple EX63.
Yeah, this is going to be 64 Old Granite Street, and that's just going to give you another view easterly of Old Granite Street.
Okay. And across the street, EX64, that green color?
Yeah, this is the parking garage for the center of New Hampshire. Where it jets out right here at the corner. That's pretty accurate where that circle is. There is a camera there that's going to give them some bird's eye view. It's going to cover all the way across the parking lot, Old Granite Street, up through Elm Street over here.
Okay. And moving back into the Bank of America, EX67.
This one is another cell phone video that we conducted an investigation. There's a couple of bystanders out here. One of them had cell phone video of the shooting itself.
Okay.
And that's just approximate where it was shot from.
Okay. And then that last one I think you said was from Canoco?
Yeah, this is 570 Elm Street right here at the Canoco gas station. We have a camera on the kind of corner of the building right here. Soho 1's going to give you a view easterly, this area. The Canoco is going to give you a view westerly of kind of the same area.
How's the quality of that footage?
Out of all the videos, Canoco is the worst one that we have. It's very difficult, kind of grainy, I guess, that's the way to put it.
Okay. All right. And again, that was State's Exhibit 56 in total, that diagram. So if we can, Detective, we can have you go back to your seat, but let's start with State's Exhibit 58. And again, you said this is from 54 Old Granite Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, and this is State's 56. Do you recognize this area?
Yeah, that's the area of Old Granite Street. The goat's there, then 54 Old Granite, 64 Old Granite.
And in that red circle, what's that highlighting?
That's a camera affixed to the outside of 54 Old Granite Street that we recovered video from.
Okay. And I know it's hard to see, and we're going to zoom in and actually watch the video, but does that clip right there, does that look consistent and reasonably reflect the footage angle that was taken from that camera?
Yes, it does.
So This is States 58, and this video is a little over 7 minutes long. So before I play it, similar to when we were inside the goat, can you just help orient us and direct our attention?
Yes, it'll be easier again if I...
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
This is the goat right here, 50 Old Granite Street. The entry exit's going to be right here, so you're going to see the involved parties start coming out. Mendoza and Nash are going to walk across the street and get inside this white vehicle right here. Gage Chandler, Mazzotto, and John Delee are going to walk up together on the sidewalk. 3 females will follow them out shortly after. We're kind of all going to congregate in this general area right here. And again, this is the one that's obstructed by the sign. If you look closely, you'll be able to see legs down there, but that's the general area they're going to be at. As the video progresses, you'll see Nash Mendoza exit this vehicle, come over to this general area right here by that white car on this side of the road. And during the court, about a minute and a half in, you're going to see Mr. Pouliot come out and start walking this way. As the video progresses, you see Mr. Pouliot start walking back up this way from the sidewalk. You are going to hear the audio of the loud popping noise, which we know to be consistent with gunshots. When you hear those gunshots, you'll see a lot of people heading out this way, and then they'll just roll on for a little bit, and you'll see the MPD response. There'll be multiple cruisers coming this way and down here on Elm Street.
So there's going to be audio on this one?
Yes, this is the one that has outdoor audio, yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to play States 58. At some point. Detective, looking at that white car, who just got out of the car?
It's Trent Nash.
right, Detective. Let's move up to 36 Old Granite Street. Do you recognize this? This is State's Exhibit 59.
Yes, this is a Google Street view of 36 Old Granite Street.
Similar to before, what is the blue circle highlighting?
It's indicating an exterior camera that we were able to recover footage from.
And does this clip represent the angle and what that camera was documenting?
Yes, it does.
So moving on to State's Exhibit 60. Is this that camera angle?
Yes, it is.
And this clip's about 4.5 minutes long. What are some of the areas that we should be focusing on, and can you just help orient where we're looking?
So at this point, you're going to have your westerly view down Old Granite Street. The interaction we talked about is going to occur right here. There's no longer blocked by that sign. So we get a full picture of what's going on over here. Again, just a reminder, Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash go with this white car right here. Mr. Delee, Soldano, Chandler, and his friends come up this way. We're all going to congregate right about here at the three females. There's an interaction with Mr. Nash behind the vehicle. And you'll see one with Mr. Mendoza in front of this vehicle. Then Mr. Delee, Chandler, and Soldano will walk up the sidewalk right here. The females remain here. Nash and Mendoza will start walking the street. We'll park right about here in the middle, I guess. And then you're going to see Timothy Pouliot coming up this way. And then he gets up this way. You're going to see Abby Elliott run after him and kind of push him right as we get off screen right here. And then all the male subjects will be off camera view. The three females will be in this general area leading up to the shooting incident.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. And again, this one won't have audio. It was the last one, correct?
This will be just video, yes.
Okay. right, so let's move on to State's Exhibit 61. Same camera angle, correct?
Yes.
This has just been zoomed in and shortened a minute and a half or so.
Yeah, this is the zoomed-in version.
Okay. So that white car on the right-hand side, based on your previous testimony, that's the car we're going to see Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash get into, and
Yes.
then the interaction that you were describing is going to happen to the left side of the screen. You're the white car on the
Yeah,
left
the
side.
white car, yes.
Yeah. And this is State 61, if I didn't say it. Who's in that tan sweatshirt on the left-hand side on the sidewalk right there?
That's Gage Chandler.
Okay. And who do we see coming up on the left?
That's Matthew Saldano, and then Mr. Delee with his arms out right now.
Moving ahead, you described this exhibit, the next exhibit, State's Exhibit 62, was a combination of 36 Old Granite Street and 54 Old Granite Street, right?
Yes.
Synced up, side by side?
Yes.
Okay. Is it perfectly synced up?
Might be off by a second or two.
Okay.
But it's going to give you the perspective, east and west, to come together.
Okay. what's happening at this point?
Mr. Nash is walking over to Mr. Delee.
Who's that walking up on the left in the black and white screen?
It's Timothy, going eastbound now.
Now I want to move the other direction. I want to go down from the goat. All right, so down to 64 Old Granite Street. This is State's Exhibit 63, and we're going to do a similar thing. Do you recognize this photograph? You already identified it as State's 57. Can you recognize where that yellow circle is highlighting?
Yes, that's from an exterior camera that we recovered footage from.
Okay, and is that from 64 Granite Street?
Yes, it's a red. You can see 64 fixed just above that white rectangular sign there.
And then similarly, is the clip that you can see right there, that still image, is that what is depicted in the video?
Yes, that's accurate.
And is this that video?
Yes, it is.
This is State 63. The video itself is about 3.5 minutes long, correct?
Yes.
And I'm just gonna play about 2 minutes of that. All right, the first 2 minutes or so. Actually, I think we have an idea, but can you just stand back up and just orient us to where we're looking, where everything is?
So we're going to be looking easterly again. This is that white vehicle. The windows are Hampshire in. The goat's going to be up here. It's very hard to see. There's a brick right there. That's the entry exit way. And in this video, you're going to see Mr. Pouliot come down this way, walking westerly down on Granite Street on the sidewalk.
All right. Thank you, Detective. All right, State's Exhibit 63. And no audio for this one?
No.
Let's move across the street to State's Exhibit 64. That green angle, I think you testified earlier, it was from the parking garage?
Yes.
Okay. Is this still depicting what we're going to see in the video?
Yes, it is.
And just describe for us, in general, what to expect on this. This clip's about 4 minutes long, correct?
Yes.
And can you just stand up, walk us through what we're seeing and what we can expect to see and where we should focus our attention?
So based on previous video, that's the white car, Mendoza and Nash. The interaction's going to be behind this white car, in front of the white car. You can see the parties separate. Mr. Delee and his associates walk this way, all the way up the sidewalk, into Hampshire Lane area right here. There's a tree here and on the side of so you kind of lose sight a little bit. Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash come this way, up through here. You'll eventually see Mr. Nash head over this way, kind of behind the truck, right in the corner. There'll be some other people there. You'll see Mr. Mendoza briefly cross in front of these headlights. He is right here. And you'll see Mr. Pouliot coming up this way in the street. And then Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Nash, Pouliot are all going to congregate right here. You'll see Mr. Lee, Mr. Sedano also up here. And it's going to capture the shooting. You'll be able to see muzzle flashes right about here.
Thank you, Detective. And again, it's about 4 minutes long, and this is State 64. And so for this last 2 minutes, I'm going to zoom in, okay? And detective, do you want to step up and can you just point out who we're seeing? And I can actually back up, that way you can fill us in on where we're. So who's walking in front of Soho right now?
I can see Gage Chandler, John Delee, Matthew Saldano. 1, 2, 3.
Who's right there?
Trent Dash and Michael Mendoza. Timothy Pouliot right there.
So what area should we be looking for the gunshots?
Right there.
Who's walking right there?
That's John Delee walking back down Hampshire Lane.
Thank you, detective. So going back to our diagram, now we're up to Soho. Correct. You already explained the angles of this.
Yes.
In relation to those two angles, we saw those gunshots on that parking garage footage. Was the actual shooting captured on either of these angles that we're about to see?
There's a very small blind spot. You will see Timothy Pouliot fall into one of the camera angles, and you'll be able to see some bullet hitting the street, causing defects, a little sparking, if you will.
Okay. All right, and is this a split screen? This is State's Exhibit 65, my apologies. Is this a split screen of both Cam 3 and Cam 4?
Yes, right now you're looking at Cam 3, which covers Old Grand Street.
So who do we have walking up here?
Go back or?
Yeah, to back up. Absolutely.
All right. John Delee, Matthew Saldano, Gage Chandler, Mendoza, Trent Nash.
Right here, whereabout is Trent Nash and Mendoza?
Mike Mendoza is right there, and Trent Nash is right there.
So where should we be looking now?
You can see Timmy Pouliot right here.
Right, Detective. You can stay right there, please. So you had mentioned you could see bullets hitting the pavement, correct?
Yes.
Before we go to that, the timestamp on the video that we can see in the upper right-hand corner of the videos says 1 a.m., 48 minutes, and 38 seconds. Is that accurate?
No, it's about an hour and 3 minutes or so.
Fast, okay. And are some of those other video clips that have timestamps, are those off a little bit?
A few seconds here and there, but they're generally ballpark.
Okay.
Accurate.
And now at this point, I'll come forward. Who's this?
John Delee?
Okay, and we can see him reaching for something.
Yes.
Okay. At this point, where is Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash?
Mr. Mendoza is right there. It's very hard to see. And Mr. Nash is behind that truck in the back corner, this area.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the Bank of America parking lot?
Yes, sorry, it is. Yeah.
That's not the alleyway?
No.
Okay. How about Mr. Pouliot?
He's down the sidewalk down here. You can't see him right now, but eventually he'll come into view and then come up the street this way. Okay.
Just 1 second to I'll get back up there. Just one step back. Detective, can I actually have you step back and point out on the same thing that we just did up there back here? For the benefit of the-
Sure, may I just stand over?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's kind of wordy. All right, so same question.
Okay.
You testified this is the defendant, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And where were Mr. Mendoza and Mr. Nash at this point?
It's hard to see that actually is Mr. Mendoza right there on the sidewalk. Mr. Nash, based on the video you're seeing, we know he's on the side of that pickup truck over there.
I'm just going to ask you the same questions. So this area here, I pointed up there, that's the Bank of America parking lot.
Yeah, it's Bank of America parking lot across from the Soho.
Okay. This isn't the alleyway.
No, sir.
Okay. And then in this picture, approximately where is Timmy Pouliot?
Somewhere down here on the sidewalk, walking in this direction. Video progresses, you'll see him come out here, come on the street right there.
Now, Detective, before I hit play on this, can you just tell us where we're looking on this? This is the same footage, correct?
Yes.
Just zoomed in?
Yep.
Okay. Where are we looking at in this camera angle?
This is from camera 3 zoomed in. You're going to be looking at Old Grand Street again. This is the view. It's going to catch Mr. Pouliot falling backwards right about here. You'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, either an impact on the pavement or sometimes you'll see an actual spark of the projectile hitting the pavement and skipping off.
I'm going to back it up and then do it again because I think it's starting to play. So we should be looking right to left as far as the circles go.
Yeah, it's gonna work. This way.
Okay, thank you. And I know that happened quick. I'll play it one more time just to make sure for the people that it's their first time seeing it. And now, Detective, I'm going to have you sit down for 1 second. I'm going to try to unplug this one. So the footage we just watched was a compilation or a side-by-side of camera 3 and camera 4, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For the exhibit, they'll have the jurors will have the compilation, but they'll also have the individual videos?
Yes, there's,
The
yeah.
full-size videos?
Yep.
Okay. Just going to pull up. So same exhibit for purposes of the record. This is about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Just hit play. So this is the alleyway. Is that correct?
Yes, that's Hampshire Lane.
Apologize. Pause that real quick and get rid of that. Apologize. So again, we talked about this a little bit earlier with the VLC player. The controls on there.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Just let me know when it's a good time to take the afternoon break. We've gone a little more than an hour here.
Probably have about 7 minutes.
Okay.
We could take one now, or I can just get through these last ones.
Try to
Sure.
close up.
So this is State 66. This is the Kanoko station footage, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you would describe this as kind of poor quality.
Yes.
All right. Is this what that footage looked like?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna play. It's about 3.5 minutes long. I'm gonna play about the first 2.5 to 3 minutes, and then we'll stop. Okay.
Okay.
And I hate to pause, but the audio that we're hearing, is that related to the actual camera?
No, I think it was inadvertent when detectives were downloading it or getting it from the store clerk. It's inside audio from to download the video. It does not capture anything outside.
Okay. I'm gonna remove the audio just so it doesn't distract. Who's walking down the alley to the left?
That's John Delee right there.
These people walking related or unrelated to the event?
Nope, unrelated.
So on it there, the other Soho camera angle that's a little bit more clear, that picks up the next part of that, correct?
Yeah, it's almost like I guess, mirror image to describe it. One's facing toward down, Kanoko, one's facing towards Soho.
Okay. States Exhibit 67, where was this collected from?
This was the bystander cell phone video of the actual shooting.
Okay. Is there audio with this?
Yeah, it's just like a cell phone video. There will be audio and video of it.
I'm going to play a little bit of it, then I'm going to pause, ask you to identify who we're seeing, and then I'll back it up and play it through.
Okay.
This is fairly short video.
Yes, I believe it's only like 12, 13 seconds-ish.
Maybe I'll just let it play instead of messing with the tech, and then we'll play it through. So if you can stand up and just come over and tell us who we're looking at or watching the video before I hit play, if you can identify who you can see right there.
Right now you can see Gage Chan on the sidewalk, John Delee. That actually made it worse. This close up, sorry. Matthew Saldano and Timothy Pouliot.
Okay.
Dude, these guys are all talking. Timmy, go pull up that. Hey, get back here, not here.
I just want to back it up. I'm going to try to pause it. So from this angle, who are we looking at in this still?
Timothy Pouliot, John Delee, Michael Mendoza, Matthew Saldano, Trent Nash.
Okay. And where you pointed out Mr. Chandler earlier, did you just point him out or did I miss it?
No, he's off screen now. The original angle, he was over here.
Okay.
And then the street's house kind of obstructing right here, but now these guys are more screen, but gauge handler's going to be off.
All right. Now, there's a lot going on in a short period of time. So let's start with Trenton Nash and Mr. Mendoza. What do we see them do in the video?
They're going to turn and run this way.
Okay. And Mr. Saldana, what does he do?
He's going to kind of put his hand on his head and start walking back towards Hampshire Lane.
Okay. All right. So play it one more time.
These guys are all tired. When you go close, back. Hey, get back here, back here.
Thank you, Detective Lovejoy. If you can have your seat, I have no further questions, Your Honor. That's
All right. We'll just take a short afternoon recess and then we'll.
Good afternoon, Detective. Since for whatever reason that's, it is noticeable. Or not. Could I ask you to step over to the screen for a moment?
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm showing you State's Exhibit 67. And just if you could look one more time, could you identify us where Trenton Nash is? All right, wearing a white T-shirt, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he's wearing a white T-shirt from the beginning of this video, correct?
Yes, at some point outside he takes his jacket off just for this interaction.
And so, this is, I've got it at 1:22 on State's Exhibit 65. 1 minute and 22 seconds. Is that Trenton Nash crossing the street? In the middle of Old Granite Street?
Right here?
Yes.
Yeah, the white sneakers on, yes.
All right, and what's he wearing there?
He did his jacket on.
Okay. And he crosses the street and walks basically off-screen into the middle, into the gap between the two camera angles, correct?
Yeah, he ended up in that blind spot between 3 and 4.
Okay. And I'm just going to play till that part of it. All right, and he's off-screen now, right?
Yes.
We never see him again with his coat on, correct?
I don't believe so, no.
And we don't actually see him take the coat off.
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Nothing further on.
All right, you can step down. You're all set.
Here are the state calls Nyla Baramovich.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you will be giving will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Listen.
Good afternoon.
Could you, before you begin, so you have water up there with you, which is fine. And there's a microphone that's right in front of you. That's kind of gray. So if I can't hear you, I'll ask you to speak up, but just so you know that that's there too, okay?
Thank you.
Could you state your name, and would you spell your first and last name for the record for us?
It's Ayla Baramovich. It's AJLABAJRAMO, V as in Victor, IC.
Sounds like you've done that before. Where are you from?
Manchester.
Manchester? How long have you lived here about?
Over 20 years.
Is that about how old you are?
Yep.
So you were living in Manchester in January of this year, is that right? Where were you working at that time?
I was at the GOAT.
You were at the GOAT? And what was your position there? What did you do there?
I was just hosting.
Hosting? About how long had you been working there?
About like 4 months.
Are you still working there now? No. What was the last time that you'd been to the GOAT?
The Monday after the shooting.
So I want to take you back to that time, so January 27th, that night, into the early morning of January 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe for us what your plans were on that evening?
I had gotten dinner with one of my friends, and then we had gone to the GOAT to go see our friend Sarah.
So who was the friend that you went to the GOAT with?
Kayla.
And what's Kayla's last name?
Norton.
And you were going to meet a friend named Sarah?
Yeah.
Was there anybody else with you?
Nope, just me and Kayla.
So do you have an idea about when you guys arrived at the GOAT?
Say around 11:30.
Did you know Timothy Pouliot that night, or before that night, I should say?
I'd just seen him there from working there, but I've never had an interaction with him.
Was anybody that you were with a friend of Timmy's?
Sarah was.
So going back to that evening, I'm going to move you forward now. You said you were at the bar. So about around 12:30 a.m., so towards the end of the evening. What happened in the bar around that time?
Sarah, I was bringing her home, and she was closing her tab, and she was taking her time, so I had gone up to her, and I was like, come on, Sarah, and she was talking to Timmy. So then we all just kind of started talking, and then John had come up behind me, and I'm tall, so somebody was overtowering me, and I was uncomfortable, and he had started talking to Timmy, telling him to go outside, and that he was going to meet him outside, and Timmy was saying no. So I had worked there, so not at the time, I wasn't working at the time, but I had gone over to grab a bouncer, but at that time Brian had already walked over.
So I'm going to stop you and walk you back through that just a little more slowly so we know everybody we're talking about. So you're first at the bar because Sarah's closing out her tab?
Yeah.
Okay. And Timmy's there with you guys?
Yep, Timmy was talking to Sarah at the time.
All right. And what are you just kind of standing waiting for them?
Yeah, I was telling her that I was like, we were all ready to go, and then her and Timmy were taking Snapshots, so we just kind of were Snapchatting off her phone, and that was about it.
Who was supposed to be leaving with you that night?
We were taking Sarah with us, Kayla Norton was with me, and Cole Capano.
Cole Capano. Okay, so that was another friend.
Yeah.
And you said that John came over. Did you know, who is this?
The defendant.
The defendant? Okay. Do you see him in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you just describe him by something he's wearing or where he's...
Yep, he's wearing a suit jacket and a black tie.
May the record just reflect that this identified the defendant. Had you met John before that night?
No.
So can you describe for me again what was making you uncomfortable in that moment?
Just having somebody overtower me, and you could tell that he was like standing above me and behind me, and I was just uncomfortable because somebody was like above me.
And were you standing right next to Timmy when this was happening?
I was standing right behind Sarah, and Timmy was to her left.
And then can you describe for me again what you were hearing for a conversation? What was happening?
John had walked over and was telling Timmy that he was going to meet him outside, and then he was telling him to go outside, and Timmy was saying no.
And did this just happen once, or was this said more than one time?
It was like 2 or 3 times.
Other than physically, the fact that he was taller than you, what was the defendant's demeanor like? Like, what was he?
It was like forceful, like kind of yelling at somebody to go outside, to meet them outside, like starting a fight. So that's where I went over to grab a bouncer because it was like starting to spur up a little.
Okay. And so you walked away from the bar at that point to get a bouncer?
Yep.
Were you able to get somebody before things started to happen?
as I was talking to the bouncer pointing out where it was happening, Brian had already walked over.
And do you know what Brian's last name is?
Brian Delaney, I think.
Okay.
He's a bouncer at the goat.
Okay. So he had walked over and intervened before you came back?
Yep.
What was, you've described, so you said you're 5'9"?
Yep.
Okay. And that felt tall to you to have the defend over you?
Mm-hmm.
How tall was Timmy compared to you?
He was shorter, so like 5'1" maybe.
What happened at that point? Once Brian Delaney got involved and broke things up, what did you see happening at that point?
I saw John going back down to the dance floor. Timmy was still up at the bar from what I could see with Sarah. And then Sarah had walked over to us, and we were about to leave until there was a fight down on the dance floor.
Okay. And was that something that you were a part of at all? Did you...
No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just have a record, so I have to remind you to keep your voice up so we can hear it. Did you leave after that fight had been broken up?
We couldn't leave because the cop was standing at the railing and telling everybody just to clear the way, so we kind of just stood to the side.
And then where did you go after you were allowed to leave?
We started to leave the goat.
And then where did you go when you left the goat?
To my car that was parked outside of the lot outside of the goat.
So you were the one that was the driver that night?
Yep.
And again, who was leaving with you? Who was in your car?
Kayla Norton, Sarah Butterworth, and Cole Capano.
And where were they in the vehicle?
Kayla Norton was in my the passenger seat. I was in the driver's seat. Cole Capano was behind me, and Sarah was to the right side.
So when you got out of, or when you got into your car, I should say, where did you go? Can you describe for us where you drove to?
So there's like 3 exits or entrances to that parking lot in front of the goat. I'd gone out in that middle exit where it's kind of that alley in between Soho and the goat, and I went to take that left right there.
And you turned actually onto Old Granite Street?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you out of what's been marked for identification only as States Exhibit number 74.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what you're looking at in that picture?
Yeah.
Okay. And what does this look like to you?
The side where the goat and Soho are.
Okay, kind of an overhead view
Yeah,
of
the
it?
overhead.
Can you mark for me where your car was parked and then just kind of show an arrow where you drove once you left that parking spot? And is that about how far you got with your car?
Yep, I had to pull over right there.
Kind of where that tree is?
Yep.
Do you mind just putting your name and today's date underneath that? Thank you. I just have to straight the ID of this picture. And let's do 74.
Okay, the ID may be stricken.
And ask the permission to the jury.
You may.
While people are just looking at the path that you described, what was your car like? What were you driving?
It was a silver Volkswagen.
A silver Volkswagen? Okay. And do you know what model it is? Or what
Passat.
Passat? Okay. So just to describe again what you've illustrated on here. So you pulled out of that parking lot, that's the Bank of America parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
And after, actually kind of drove down it, and then once you came out that exit that's kind of close to Soho,
Mm-hmm.
you were taking a left onto Old Granite
Yep.
Street? Okay. So were you headed toward this new center?
Yeah.
At that end of Old Granite Street?
Yeah.
So once you did that and made that turn, what happened?
So I did hear some like pounding on top of my car when I was about to exit and take that left, but I thought it was just Cole like hitting his hand, because I was like he might have rolled down the window, thinking his hand was hitting the top of my car. But as I took that turn, Kayla in my passenger seat grabbed me saying, "Isla, he has a gun, he has a gun." So I'd pulled over right there.
So the first thing that caught your attention was, can you describe what was happening with the roof?
You could tell that there was like something like, not like bouncing off of it, but you could feel, now that I know, it's like the gun, like reflection, or the...
Was this something you'd ever experienced before?
No.
Overruled. I mean, she can explain what happened.
So, as you made the turn onto Old Granite Street that Kayla made the statement to? Okay. And you pulled the car over. So if you're here, did you pull over to your right-hand side?
Yeah.
And so at this point, you're kind of parked right in front of Soho?
Yeah, just like towards the right a little, near that tree on the image.
What, you heard Kayla say that, what did you actually see as you came around the corner with your car? What were you seeing yourself?
I saw John standing there with the gun and Timmy on the ground.
Did you see anything happening? Did you see that defendant firing the gun at all?
Around 2 or 3 more shots.
And was that after Timmy was on the ground?
Yep.
What did you see happen at that time?
After the shots stopped, I saw John, I think, walk away, but I don't really remember. But I do remember he did either walk or run away.
Where was your attention focused at that point?
There was a lot of commotion, so a lot of the goat bouncers and the cop from the goat were running. So I saw them like in my rear or in my mirror. And then Kayla was on the phone with 911.
Okay. Did you stay in the car?
We did until the officers asked us to leave my car.
And where were you asked to go at that time?
In between that alley where the goat and Soho are, they had it taped off, so we had to stand there.
Where was Sarah with you? Still?
Sarah was not.
Okay, do you know where Sarah went?
Sarah had run up to Timmy.
And what was she doing at that time?
I don't remember.
If I may just have a moment, Your Honor. I don't have any more questions for you, Isla, at this time, but the defense attorney may have a few questions for you.
Thank you.
Yes, please, yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So just so that that we're clear, you were parked in the Bank of America parking lot, correct?
Correct.
And there's a little like parking shack or payment house right there, correct?
Yep.
It's fair to say that's where you were parked.
Yep, I parked right in front of that.
So after leaving the goat, you and your friends get into that car, drive through the parking lot, and the exit to that parking lot immediately adjacent to the alleyway between the makerspace and the Soho.
Yep.
Okay. And it's your intention at that point to take a left-hand turn.
Yes.
Okay. So as you pull out onto Old Granite Street, you're taking a left-hand turn. You hear a banging noise, per your testimony, correct?
Correct.
Are you looking up the street to your left where you're turning, or are you looking straight ahead?
Straight ahead.
Okay. So you're basically looking at the Soho, correct?
In between that, like that alleyway, yeah.
Okay. And you're not looking in the direction that you're turning?
Correct.
Okay. And you hear this banging noise, correct?
Correct.
Do you look to your left when you hear the noise?
Correct. I looked to see if Cole's window was open.
Okay. And where's Cole sitting in relation to you?
Behind me on the driver's side.
So you look to your left, and at this point you don't see anything, correct? You're just
Correct.
looking for Cole. And somebody else in the car alerts you that there's a person with a gun up the street?
Correct.
And at this point you see that Timothy's already on the ground?
Correct.
Okay. And the banging has stopped, right?
Not off my car, yeah, but not on the street.
So at this point, you pull the car forward and you eventually stop your car, correct?
Correct.
Are you in front of the Soho, or have you pulled into that alleyway?
I'm in front of Soho, but closer to that alley.
And you stay in the car?
Correct.
Okay. A police officer ultimately orders you out?
Yep, once they arrived.
Okay, and you notified the police officer immediately what your observations were?
Yep.
Did they check your car for damage?
Correct.
They found no damage?
Correct.
Just to be thorough, have you reviewed any videos of this incident prior to today?
No.
Have you seen any videos of this incident prior to today?
I mean, after in January, yeah.
Okay, so you watched videos of the incident in the news media or something along those lines?
Correct.
Those videos inside or outside the GOAT?
Outside.
Or those videos outside of the Soho?
Yep.
No further questions for this witness, Judge.
Okay, you can step down.
Thank you.
All right, does the state have any further witnesses?
Your Honor, at this time, the state of New Hampshire rests.
Okay. And do you intend to call any witnesses?
Matthew Soldano.
Thank you. you're seated, if you can just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat.
Good afternoon. Could you state your name and age for the record?
Matthew Soldano, 23 years old.
Matthew, where do you live?
Salem, New Hampshire.
And what do you do for work?
I work in finance at a hospital.
So, Matthew, I want to bring you back to January 27th of 2023. Could you just give me a brief description of that day, the beginning of that day?
Yeah, so I was at work, and after I got out of work, I met up with my friend John. He was at a funeral all day for one of our other friends. His dad passed away. So he came over, we got in my car, and we went to Old School. It's a bar in town, and we had a drink. And then we went back to my house, got his car, and headed to the GOAT.
How do you know John?
I've known him for years through school, and we played football together.
Okay, how many years approximately?
Around 8.
Now, you just told us that you went to the GOAT, just so that we set the stage. What's the GOAT?
The GOAT is a bar in Manchester.
Okay, and have you ever been to the GOAT before?
I have a few times, yes.
And do you know why John wanted to go to the GOAT?
Yeah, we were supposed to meet up with Abby and her friends.
Abby?
His girlfriend.
Okay. So you get to the GOAT. Tell me what happens when you arrive at the GOAT.
So we had to wait in line for a good amount of time, and then once we got in, we went to the bar. I grabbed a couple of drinks, and then we made our way down to the dance floor, and Gage and John saw a couple of their friends, so we stood there for a little bit.
Who's Gage?
Gage is another friend of ours who was there with us.
And you said that there were other people there that John or Gage knew. Do you know who those people were?
I do not, no.
Okay. Did they know who you were?
No.
Okay. So about what time is it that you're at the GOAT at this point?
We arrived at the GOAT around 10:30, I believe, so we probably got inside around 11:15.
Okay. With the exception of the folks that you've already mentioned, did you run into anybody else you knew?
Not that I knew, no, but we did run into other people that I ended up talking to.
Okay. What about Abby? Did you eventually run into Abby?
Yes, we did, yep.
Okay, could you tell me a little bit about how Abby came into the picture at the GOAT?
So I'm not sure when she got there. I just remembered John had walked over to her, so I followed behind, and then we were talking to him.
Okay, do you recall anything strange or odd about, well, strike that. Was there anybody with Abby?
Yes, her two friends.
Okay. And do you know what their names were?
Olivia and Nicole.
Was there anybody else there when you walked over?
No.
Okay. What was the overall demeanor of everybody? Was people having a good time?
Yeah,
were they stressed?
From what I remember, everyone seemed to be having a good time.
Were you having a good time?
I was, indeed.
All right. So you're at the GOAT. You've met up with Abby and Abby's friends, and John is there. Anything of note happen after that?
No, not that I remember.
Okay. Do you recall, you said you got a couple of drinks. Do you recall how many drinks you had that evening?
Ooh, I can't give an exact amount, probably around 4 or 5, I would say.
Okay, do you know how many John had?
I do not know.
Okay. Were you with John the whole time?
Nah, not the whole time. I mean, I wasn't glued to him or anything, but here and there I'd check in with him.
Okay. Did you check in with him fairly regularly?
I wouldn't say regularly, no.
Okay. How long would you say you total time spent at the GOAT that evening?
Probably 2-3 hours maybe.
Okay. Did you have to leave at some point?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Could you talk to me a little bit about the circumstances of what required you to leave that evening?
So John had been punched in the face, and the bouncers were kicking him out. He was my ride home, so I followed him out.
Did you see him get punched in the face?
I did.
Do you recall what the person who punched him in the face looked like?
I do not know. I did not see his face.
Okay. Do you recall any item of clothing you might have been wearing?
I do not know.
Okay. You just recall that somebody punched him in the face?
I saw a hand hit him in the face.
When John was punched in the face, how did John react to that?
I mean, he fell over, to begin with, and then he got up and he was kind of shook. I mean, he got punched in the face, so he was a little angry.
Okay. Do you recall if John was injured at all?
Yeah, I mean, he had a cut underneath his eye.
Okay. And could you describe the situation that you viewed? Was this a scrum? Was it a punch and then everybody got broken up? Describe it for us.
So I saw the punch, and then I saw a bunch of bouncers come over, and it looked like it was broken up pretty quickly.
Okay. What happened next?
He was escorted outside. I was following behind, and then we started walking away.
Did he seem upset or aggravated?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he just got punched in the face.
Do you recall if he said anything on his way out the door?
I do not know.
Were you in front of John or behind John?
I was behind him leaving.
Okay. Anybody else leave with you?
Yeah, Gage left with us, and Abby and her friends also left with us.
Okay. So, when you go out the front door of the goat, can you set the scene for me? What's outside?
Right out the door, nothing. It was just them, and I kind of turned the corner already and started heading towards our car.
Okay. When you say you turned the corner, what direction did you go in?
Right outside of the goat, up towards Soho.
And is the Soho? So you turned right. You start going up the street towards the Soho. Why were you going in that direction?
We had parked over there.
Where did you park?
Down an alleyway, and across the street is a market basket, and that's where we were parked.
Okay, so when you got to the goat, how did you arrive from that parking lot?
We went through the alleyway up towards the goat.
Which alleyway?
The alleyway that is across the street from the market basket, next to Soho.
Okay. Let me ask you a little bit about what the weather was like outside. Was it warm, cold?
It was cold.
Anything else? Was there snow on the ground, ice, anything like that?
I don't remember, but I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you remember it was cold?
Yeah.
Did you have a sweater or a sweatshirt or anything like that?
I did. I had a sweater and a knit hat on.
Okay. When you step outside and you're in front of the goat, did you keep walking or did you stop?
I kept walking.
Okay. Anybody else stop?
And once someone had said something, and that's when I heard him and Delee going back and forth.
Who and Delee?
There was a guy outside smoking a cigarette.
Okay.
And he said something to me when I walked by, but I didn't really understand what he said, so I kind of just kept going.
Do you remember how this person was dressed?
Not exactly, no, but I just remember he had a long sleeve on and some pants.
Okay. Was he doing anything other than talking to you and Delee?
He was smoking a cigarette.
Okay. Do you remember how far away from you he was, or far away from Delee?
He was on like the edge of the sidewalk, and we were like in the middle of the sidewalk.
Okay. Did you stop to talk to him? Did you try to keep walking?
I tried to keep walking. Delee and him ended up going back and forth a little bit.
When you say they were going back and forth, what do you mean?
I just heard them talking. They were talking to one another.
All right. Were you watching this interaction?
Yeah. After I heard them start talking, I turned around.
Okay. So you're standing there. Where is John Delee based upon your perspective?
He's right in front of me, so I'm looking at his back.
Okay. And where's this other individual?
In front of Delee.
Okay. Could you see the other individual?
Not really.
Side? Okay.
Not really, no.
And you don't quite remember what they were saying. Do you remember, were they talking, yelling?
It wasn't yelling, but their voices were raised.
Okay. And do you recall what anybody said?
I do not know.
Did it seem like John recognized this person?
Not really, no.
Okay. But they were arguing back and forth. Was there anybody else there?
Yeah. So Gage, Abby, and her friends were there with us as well.
Were they doing anything at this point?
Abby was in between Delee and the other kid.
Okay. And what was Abby doing at this point?
Trying to just keep Delee away.
Okay. Was she successful?
Somewhat, yes. Not fully.
Okay, not fully. When you say not fully, what do you mean?
She wasn't able to like move him or anything.
Okay.
But she was able to stay in his way.
Okay. So at this point, what's your intention? Do you want to stay there? Do you want to leave?
I want to leave as quickly as possible.
Okay. So what steps do you take to do that?
So I started to move in front of Delee to give him a little more extra motivation to start moving up towards the thing. We were successful moving him up a little bit, and then another person approached us.
Okay, what did that person look like?
I couldn't tell you what they looked like. They were in pants and a long sleeve as well.
Okay, what drew your attention to this person?
So someone had mentioned that someone had pepper spray.
Okay.
And I looked, and
Do you remember who mentioned that?
I do not remember who it was, no.
Okay, but explain to me what happened.
So someone had said it. I looked over, and I see a kid standing there with a can in his hand, up like this. So that kind of froze me for a quick second.
Okay, when you say up like this, could you just describe for all of us
So,
what that means?
yeah, so the can was in his hand like this, and he had his finger on the top.
Okay, and who is he facing, if anybody?
Delee.
Okay. Was he squared up? Was he like 90 degrees straight on with him?
Yeah.
Okay. What did John do?
They started going back and forth with each other.
You say they started going back and forth with each other. What do you mean?
They were talking to each other.
You mean they were talking to each other? Were they using pleasantries?
No,
were they
yeah.
yelling at each other?
It was more of not a pleasant, I wouldn't say yelling, but there was definitely not a pleasant tone.
Okay. What happened next?
So that happened, and then I started being able to get him to move a little bit more.
All right.
But I wasn't really looking at him. I was more facing towards the two kids as he was moving up towards Soho more.
How did you feel about the situation at this point?
I was getting pretty scared. I've never been in a situation like this, so I didn't really know how to handle anything.
Okay.
But I was scared because, pepper spray is nothing light.
Okay. Did you feel like you were in danger?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. So from this point, are you successful in getting John to follow you or go ahead of you up the street?
Yes, I got him to move up the street a little bit, yeah.
What about these two other people? What are they doing?
They had moved back a little bit, so that's how I was more successful at getting John to move up the street. And then once I got him to the alleyway that we were going to walk down to go back to the car, and I heard from behind me, Gage had said that they were following us. So I had told Delee to stop because I didn't want him to go down the alley with people following us. And then I looked and I saw that they were across the street, but they were starting to come back towards us. And then I heard Delee and them start going back at it with each other, yelling.
So Matt, let me take you a step back.
Yep.
Where were you when the person with the pepper spray approached you? Do you recall where on the street?
We were on the sidewalk.
Okay. Were you right in front of the goat? Were you in front of another building?
We were in between Soho and the goat.
Okay. You said that Abby and her friends were with you at some point. Were they still with you at this point?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Where were they in relation to you?
So I was more towards the street side of the sidewalk, and they were behind me.
Okay. And where's John at this point?
He's also behind me.
Okay. At some point, does John move ahead of you, or does he stay behind you?
He stayed behind me.
Okay. What do you do next? Bring us back to what you were talking about before.
So that's when I turned around and I started yelling at Delee to get his butt moving up the street. And we were pretty successful. As I said, I got into the alleyway, to the entrance of the alleyway. And that's when Gage had said to us that they were following us. So I told Delee to stop. I turned, and I saw them from the other side of the street start coming back towards us.
And when you say them, who do you mean?
The two kids that we had seen prior.
At this point, where are you in relation to the Soho?
I'm right in front of the Soho.
Okay, where's Gage?
Gage is back behind me against the wall.
And where's John?
He's in the entrance of the alleyway.
Describe the alleyway to me.
It was a dark alleyway. It was just, there was trash cans in there, but it was just like a way for us to get back to the car.
Were there any lights?
Yeah, near Soho, it's pretty lit up.
Okay, but further down?
It's dark.
Okay. Tell me what you were feeling at this moment. Down that dark alleyway.
I was scared because once they told us that they were following us, it was my thing that nothing good ever comes from going down a dark alleyway with people following you.
Okay. So you've already told us that you told Delee to stop. What happened next?
So he stopped, and then he and the kids across the street that were coming towards us started going back and forth again. I tried to get him to calm down a little bit, but they were just going back and forth at it, and they started going towards each other. And I had
take you a step back for a moment, Matt. What are you doing at this point?
I'm looking at the kids coming towards us.
Okay. Are you saying anything? Are you doing anything at all?
I had my hands up trying to get them to go back over to the other side of the street.
Okay. And were you talking with them, or were you just gesturing?
I was just gesturing.
Okay. Did they heed that?
No.
Okay. What are they doing at this point while you're trying to wave them off?
They're yelling back and forth with John.
Okay. Are they walking towards you, or are they standing there?
They're walking towards us, yeah.
Okay. Where is John at this point?
He's still in the entranceway of the alley.
Do you recall what they were saying?
I do not know.
Okay. And how do you feel at this moment with those people coming towards you?
I was scared. I was definitely very scared.
Tell us what happens next.
So they start going towards each other, and I kind of turned, and I was approached by an individual, and he lifted my shirt and asked me if I had a gun.
Okay, so Matt, I want to ask you, where were you standing when this happens?
I was on the street.
What street?
The one that is in front of the goat.
Do you know the name of that street?
I do not know.
Okay. What direction were you facing?
Towards the other side of the street.
Okay, when you say the other side of the street?
So away from the goat.
Okay. Is there anything over there that you could use as a landmark to tell us where you were and where you were facing?
No, there was just it was a parking lot, there was cars.
Okay. So you're facing towards the parking lot, there are cars. Take us through what happens.
So I was approached, my shirt was lifted, he asked me if I had a gun. I didn't. I had my hands up, I didn't. I said, no, I don't. And then me and him started walking towards Delee and the two other kids that were pretty much face to face at this point.
Do you have any idea why he would ask you if you have a gun?
No.
Okay. John known to carry a gun?
He is, yes.
Did you know if he was carrying a gun that night?
I wasn't 100% sure, but I assumed he had been, yes.
Was it the first time that he carried a gun?
No.
Had you seen John carrying a gun that evening at any point up to that point?
Early in the night, before we went to the goat at my house.
Okay, so you knew when he was you were at his house, or he was at your house, that he was armed?
Yes.
So one of these people asks you if you're armed?
Yes.
Did you respond to them verbally, or did they just check you?
They just checked me.
Okay. What do you do next?
I start walking towards Delee and the other two kids that were face to face.
Okay. And can you describe to me the two people that were face to face with John?
I know they were the two kids that we had seen earlier on the sidewalk.
Okay. What's John doing at that point?
They're yelling back and forth at each other.
Okay, and what do you do at this point?
This was the last time I went up to him, tried to get him to follow me back towards the alley.
Okay. Did you go towards the alley?
I started walking away, yes, with my hands on my head.
What happens next?
Shots were fired.
Okay. Did you see the shots fired?
I did not know.
Did you hear them?
I did.
Okay, and how far away from John were you when you heard those shots?
I would have to say probably 20 feet, maybe. I wasn't on the sidewalk yet, but I was close to it.
Okay. Do you recall how many shots you heard?
I heard about 3 or 4, and then everything kind of went silent for me. I kind of got tunnel vision.
Okay. How are you feeling at this moment?
I was terrified.
All right.
I didn't know what just happened.
Do you see John after this?
I do not know.
Okay. Where do you go?
I run into Soho.
Okay. Do you see anybody else when you're in the Soho?
I was in there with Gage.
Okay. Did you talk to Gage at all?
A little bit. We were both kind of just shook at what had just happened.
Did you look back outside at all?
No.
Did you see anybody else running or anything like that?
To begin with, yes. Before I got into Soho, yep. So that's how I got into Soho. I saw Gage running towards Soho, so I followed him in.
Okay.
One moment.
No further questions, Judge.
I don't know who's going cross.
Your Honor, the state has a significant number of questions for Mr. Solano. I'm not sure if it makes sense to wait.
Okay. All right, so let's break for this afternoon. So we'll start at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, if I can get the lawyers here for 9:30, so we can take care of housekeeping matters. Actually, I'll wait on the bench and just talk to you about those issues.
All right.
Just if you can be back just before 10 o'clock. You can be seated. Okay, so... do you want to make your motion now, or do you want to do it tomorrow morning?
I can just put on the record now that I'm moving to dismiss on the grounds of insufficiency of the evidence. I don't know how much Your Honor needs to hear in terms of argument. I suspect what the ruling might be.
Okay. So I think, this is a classic case of, at this juncture, I have to take the evidence in the light most favorable to the state. And there's certainly at this juncture, with taking that standard and viewing, leaving credibility assessments to the jury, sufficient evidence for a reasonable jury to conclude certainly plenty of evidence that the defendant caused the death, and that he did so either knowingly or recklessly with extreme indifference and not based on self-defense or provocation. Those are issues I think ultimately the jury will have to decide based on a reasonableness standard. So, okay. Jury instructions. Did you submit anything on the provocation? Because you had objected and said you were going to submit something on. I just hadn't had a chance to look to it.
No, that's okay. Question anyway.
You're going to agree?
We're going to take our objection back.
Okay. So then we got the stipulations first thing in the morning. If we can just get those nailed down, so I can do that.
Those are filed now.
Oh, you did file them? Okay,
yes.
all right. I'll get those.
And we'll obviously have an opportunity after defense rests if we have any other issues with the jury instructions before they're read at least.
Yeah, just if there's anything major, I'd rather do. Okay, anything major from the defense in terms of the jury instructions?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So if we can, so if it's nothing major, then like in terms of restructuring or anything major missing that I need to do research on, then we can just deal with it. Maybe let's do it 15 minutes before we start. So if you can be here at 9:45 tomorrow, that'd be great. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Remind everyone the courthouse closed at 4 o'clock, so please don't linger in the hallways.